Okay, what's up, everybody? This is the Just Stand Up podcast. This is AJ, and today, meeting one of the two requests everybody fucking wants every single time I talk about this is I have an interview today. I actually have a guest. I have Aaron of formerly Blastyd MMA, now Blastyd. Aaron, what's up?
Hello, this is Blastyd, and this is my natural speaking voice, and I will speak like this for the rest of. I'm sorry, that's the best I could do, guys.
Oh, we almost killed him.
Two voices of that caliber would be too much for you guys to handle, so it's probably for the best. But happy to be here. I'm excited.
Dude, one of the questions submitted for the Q&A thing at the end, I wasn't going to choose it, but I'll bring it up now, was how do you feel about being on a voice interview with someone with a voice like mine?
I mean, it's slightly intimidating. Not to get too right into Avengers stuff, but if you remember when Thor first meets the
Oh,
Guardians of
don't
the
spoil it.
Galaxy. No, I'm not talking about this. This
Oh
is a
yeah.
past
Oh,
one.
Infinity War. Okay, yeah.
That
Go ahead and
that
tell.
wasn't even Infinity War. That was Ragnarok, right? Or no, it was. You're right. You're
No,
right.
when he meets Peter,
Yeah,
Infinity
that
War
was
after
Infinity War. Yes.
the Asgardian ship gets blown up.
Yeah, and Quill immediately starts talking in a deeper voice. I'm like, that's a little bit how it feels. Slightly competitive, slightly intimidating, but I think at the end of the day, just as Thor could to certainly be a great benefit to the Guardians of the Galaxy, your deep baritone voice will be a huge benefit to this podcast. So I'm excited. No worries.
Hopefully, and I'll just warn people now. At the end, we're gonna go full in-game discussion. That was something we were both looking forward to. So we will give copious spoiler warnings before it starts. But that's just a heads up to people. Just know somewhere near the end. Don't be time jumping if you haven't seen Endgame yet. We will give plenty of spoiler warnings, but it's gonna come eventually.
All right, cool. Yeah, probably good that we got that out of the way in the beginning because
Just give them a little warning. I don't want to be fucking Colby Covington spoiling shit for people.
I mean, I don't want to be Colby Covington in general, and especially in that particular facet of things.
I don't have the money to pay porn stars to take Instagram pictures with me, so I just can't go down that road.
Fair enough.
Okay, so I guess what people are gonna, normally the tradition is I just start with a recap of the fights that happen, then we move into news, then we move into Q&A, and then whatever I ramble with finishing at the end. So there was two fights this weekend, or two fight cards this weekend. There's Bellator 220. There was the UFC Fort Lauderdale card. They were both Saturday night. Oh, I've already said, oh, people are gonna be so pissed. I even have something on my computer that says "Don't say." So I assume people are gonna want to hear the UFC stuff first. So the main event, we had Jack Hermanson versus Jacare Souza, and Hermanson won by unanimous decision. God damn, I'm doing it again. Most people didn't know who Hermanson was coming into this. He, just had his coming out party of sorts against David Branch. What was it, 2, 3 weeks ago? Maybe a month at most. And he immediately got a big step up competition. I know you were impressed with what he did. That was one of the few fights you saw this weekend. Me too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I honestly I did not know who Jack Hermanson was. I mean, I'm not as deep into the weeds following UFC as I used to be, and I knew
Same.
I knew he submitted David Branch, right? Which is that's great. Like Branch is a black belt, blah blah blah. He's also kind of inconsistent. Seems like he might be a little bit of a head case, and lucky submissions happen. So I was like, you know what? Who knows what actually happened? Like he caught him in a submission, whatever, right? So I, like many people, just sort of expected Jacare to roll through him, which is not what happened at all.
Yeah, that was definitely an assumption that you could say is a safe assumption. Like it felt like, oh, maybe he just, he got, because I think it was guillotine. I think it was within like 30, 40 seconds of the fight, maybe 2 minutes at most. And so, yeah, I was on the same path. Like I just knew the name Jack Hermanson. He followed me a while ago, and so I just immediately followed him back, just seeing that he was in the UFC. Just fuck it. And I knew he had like a decent winning record in the UFC. I didn't know how great he was, but the branch obviously started catching our eyes. But then, because I'll tell people right now, I didn't watch the Fort Lauderdale card. I don't watch cards with Greg Hardy on them. It's a moral obligation. If you don't like it, tough shit. Um, but hearing that it was, a unanimous decision, I was impressed. I saw the little 4 punch short combo he had in the first round that dropped Jacare. That is so hard for me to say for some reason, and that was impressive in its own. Him going for the submission again maybe wasn't the best choice, but maybe he got a little over giddy or something.
No, I think not at all. Okay, so this is what really impressed me about Hermanson. So first of all, the arm in guillotine choke, that's what he caught Branch with. Like that's his specialty, and he just had zero like fucks about going into grappling with Jacare. And he really reminded me in a lot of ways of GSP. I mean, like their striking style was a little bit different. Like,
Ooh, that's going to trigger some people.
and let me explain why. It's like, no, GSP is the greatest ever. You cannot compare anyone to him. That is terrible. Like, just chill out. It's okay. Take a deep breath. Let me explain. It'll be all right. You guys just bear with me. So the thing that made GSP so dangerous was you never knew exactly what he was going to do. You know, if you were defending his grappling and his takedowns, then you're going to drop your hands and you're going to get jabbed in the face all day. You know, if you're worried about his striking and Superman punches, his kicks, his jabs, he's going to take you down. And the two things played off of each other. And he really made him a complete martial artist. I mean, like we saw in pure striking battles, even against somebody like Johnny Hendricks, who GSP just couldn't take down, it was a really hard fight for him, and he wasn't as effective. And Hermanson did that exact same sort of approach. Like, he was willing to grapple with Jacare. He took him down 3 times, and I can't remember if it was in the second or third. He took him down and just ground and pounded him for, you know, about half a round, which is incredible. I mean, you know, everybody was like, wow, you don't ever want to mess with Jacare on the ground. And Hermanson's like, what's he going to do? Like, if I'm on top in his guard, like he's not, and it's true. I mean, it's not like Jacare's like a spry, nimble, flexible guy who's going to go for some sort of crazy submission off his back. Like, he wants to be on top and just punish you. So Hermanson just was absolutely fearless in the grappling. And I thought his striking looked great too. His footwork was good. His distance management was good. He actually had pretty good head movement. And, you know, he definitely wasn't as powerful as Jacare, but he was landing, just like AJ said, you know, like 3-4 punch combos. And Jacare was just looking for this one big shot. So, I mean, it was just an incredibly impressive performance. I'm not usually one to get super hyped about a fighter until I've seen him multiple times, but based off that one performance, I mean, I think he's top 3 in the division.
I'm talking about these. I always give the suggestion who they should fight next. And honestly, I think I don't understand the old or the I don't understand the Paulo Costa hype. His best win is either Johnny Hendricks or Uriah Hall. So I say people aren't gonna like hearing this. I say fuck Paulo Costa. Let's go ahead and throw Hermanson in there with Yoel Romero. He just what was Jacare, like 3 or 4 right now. Luke Rockhold's still ranked in the top 3, but if we take him out, I think Jacare is number 3 if Luke's taken out, and then Yoel's somewhere up around 1 or 2. I say we just give Hermanson to Yoel next. I mean, that's the only step above him that he can take until Israel and Robert settle their unification bout.
I think that's a perfect idea. I think Yoel or Weidman. I think Yoel, if you really want to find out what this guy's made of, I'm always scared to feed a really good prospect to Yoel, no matter how good they are, because like.
Well, the problem is he just took out number 3 or 4, you know, unanimous decision, and before that he took out what, number 10. You know, he did number 10 and number 3 or 4 within like a month or two. And anymore, he's a top 5 fighter. You know, at some point you can't keep feeding him guys under him at this point. You have to keep going above. Luke's out. That just leaves, you know, Yoel, Robert, Izzy, maybe Kelvin. I don't know where Kelvin's ranked after losing to Izzy.
Yeah, well, I think, though, what we've seen with the UFC is once you get into the top 5 or so, rankings really don't mean a whole lot of anything. So
yeah.
they're kind of fluid. I mean, like, at this point, I think you want to give them someone that's going to test them, is going to be a good matchup. And then I think at the end of the day, UFC has to figure out how much they want to push this guy. Like, do they want to give him to just like a straight prospect killer, or do they want to set him up for a title fight?
Yeah, my problem is I live in this little delusional world where I try to make matchups just solely off the ranking and not factoring in the Dana White's fuck it factor.
Fair enough. Well, that's
a nice
what
little utopia I live in.
Well, and that's what I liked. And you know what? It's weird. I don't know when they're going to make his next fight. I think some of it really could depend also on what happens when Izzy and Whitaker fight. Because if Israel wins, then Yoel is suddenly back in the mix and could be contending for a title again. And if it's weird, like I definitely don't envy the matchmakers, but I think regardless, like Hermanson's a really interesting prospect. I think there's a lot you can do with him, and I agree with you that Paulo Costa hasn't really been anyone impressive, and just pump the brakes on him a little bit.
Yeah, that's one of the top hype trains I don't quite get in the sport right now. I guess he looks good. You know, he does have, you know, it's entertaining fights, but I mean, guys, who's he beat? chunky Johnny Hendricks, Uriah Hall are his two best wins, and just settle down.
He's basically like if Henan Barao had taken the gamma radiation that the Hulk went on, and now it's just Paulo Costa.
See, I was just thinking Mario Magic, but gamma radiation might be even better.
I'm just gonna throw in as many gratuitous Avengers references throughout the entire fight talk. You can
I'm more than happy with that.
you can see where my mind's at right now, but
Oh my god. Okay, we have to move on from this at some point. Um, I'm not going to say a thing about the co-main event. If you want to talk about it, you can, or we can just move on to Mike Perry versus Cowboy Oliveira.
yes, very briefly. This is my recap of the co-main event. The UFC was like, "Wow, we found a jobber last time, and he was too good for Greg Hardy. Let's find a potato that has now assumed human form. Potato, fight Greg Hardy." And the potato was like, "I'm gonna try one takedown from about 8.5 feet away. That didn't work. All right, I'm done." And that was the whole fight. You did not miss a single thing.
That's good. That's good to hear. Fuck Greg Hardy. Let's just end on that. Okay. Mike Perry, he got his unanimous decision win against Cowboy Oliveira. I refuse to call him Alex Oliveira. It's Cowboy Oliveira in my book. I don't really know what to do with him at this point. Cowboy Oliveira's bounced back and forth between the lower top 15 in the division. He's usually in and out. I mean, Mike Perry, from the clips I saw, he's continuing to improve, which is great. I don't like Mike Perry. He just annoys the shit out of me, but I won't deny it. He's making great improvements in his technique and his fighting style. And it's good to see. I mean, at least it helps counterbalance a little bit of the dickhead that he normally is. I guess maybe we can throw him into the bottom 15 now. I mean, he lost that bid when he fought Cowboy. Cowboy was like number 13 or 12 when he fought him. But I think at this point, it's probably time to throw him into the bottom 15 again, see what happens.
Sure. I mean, I think both those guys are kind of in the let's make fun fights for them category. Like, neither one of them's ever really going to be a champion. I mean, they're just too, on the level of insanity, like both of those guys are pretty high up there, and they're going to go in, do crazy shit, put on entertaining fights, and that's it. Just if you're down for that, they're fun guys to watch. And if you want to see, great prospects climbing the ladder and, honing this precise technique, then you'll probably look elsewhere.
I saw UFC was trying, or they're starting to plant the seeds, as Joey Diaz would say, of him versus Till. I saw they were posting on the official UFC Instagram there that picture of Mike Perry yelling at Darren Till after, I want to say it was the Cowboy fight, when he was screaming at him between the cage. To me, I mean, that'd be the fun fight people want to see. If I was going based off of the rankings, I think I would probably give him what's his name, Elizu dos Santos. Don't they call him Elias Capoeira or something?
Sure.
The people are gonna kill me for all these ums. The dude who he just fought, Curtis Melinder. I believe that's how you say it, and finished him. I don't remember what the submission was, but I remember it was a submission. That would be a good fight and make a little bit of ranking sense, but that would fit pretty well on the crazy scale.
I actually I never thought of it. If Till's going to stick around at 170, which is an absolutely terrible idea, but that seems to be Till's, bag of tricks right now, is just terrible ideas.
He just wants to break his kidneys at this point.
But if he is going to stick around, like, that's a good, because I mean, he's had two bad goes now. And I mean, especially the last one, we got absolutely deaded. Perry is actually a pretty good matchup for him. He's not going to be nearly as tricky as Masvidal, and he's still a name. Let Till give Till a favorable matchup where he can get a win and get back on track.
Yeah, it's that good little bounce back that has enough name recognition. People would actually care about it. It's not like if he went out and beat Neil Magny. Like, most casual fans are not going to care if he goes out and beats Neil Magny as his comeback fight in the skid. But Mike Perry, because he's got the name and attention brought on him, that would actually get people's attention pretty well.
Exactly. So I actually don't think that's a bad idea. The only part of that that's just a terrible, terrible idea is Till staying at 170. But
if he wants to ruin his body, I guess we have to let him at this point. You all the claims of performance and judging people, how their weight cuts work, checking out, making sure they're healthy to do it. You think someone would pull Till in there for a week and be like, "Hey, it's extremely unwise for you to continue doing this. We would really prefer you move up to middleweight." But I guess if you have a name, you get to slide past those tests and get to ignore them.
Well, I mean, see, the other part, though, is I don't think it's necessarily even helping him in terms of his fighting, right? Like, I mean, I think the only reason you would do it at this point is you're like, all right, it's hurting my body, it's screwing up my kidneys, this weight cut's terrible, but I'm getting this huge competitive advantage. But is he even getting that? Because he's purely a striker, right? So he's a bigger, which is good, I guess, but he's way slower at 170. And you see guys like Masvidal who just have this immense speed advantage. They have no problem closing the distance, and he just got knocked out by Masvidal. I mean, and that was essentially a striking battle. If you can't win that one, bud, like go up, fight some of these slower guys.
Yeah, but as we know off of his little jaunt in Spain last week, he's not making the best decisions anyway, so we shouldn't expect him to make the best decisions in fighting as well.
Yep, fair point.
He's a wild boy. There was a bunch more fights on the card. We'll just cover them quick. I mean, Glover Teixeira, he beat Ion Cutelaba. I said a week or two ago after Nikita Krylov beat OSP that Nikita should just wait for that, fight the winner of that. Glover's 11-12 right now. That one makes sense. And then Corey Sandhagen, he defeated John Lineker. He's number 8. That was a split decision. Again, didn't see the fights. I saw a lot of people say it was like a bullshit decision. It was close. I honestly have no idea what to do with him after that. Most of the top 10 of bantamweight is either booked up right now or the fight just doesn't make a lot of sense. So he's probably going to have to wait a little while if I had to guess to find a good matchup.
Yeah,
I'm going to guess you probably into those fights.
I spent all of 0 seconds thinking about who Corey Sandhagen should fight next.
I'm trying to be semi-professional in this, cover the fights even if I didn't care about them. So on my notes I wrote, I have no fucking idea for who he should fight next. There's a lot of names there, but most of them are booked, or it just doesn't make total sense. I know you didn't catch Bellator today. I don't have DAZN or DAZN, or however the fuck you say it. And oddly enough, I have Hulu Live. They don't have Paramount Network. Every other cable streaming service thing I've used has. But I sailed the 7 seas, as some people know what that means. And I've been catching up on the Bellator fights from 220 last night. The Roy versus Fitch title fight, that was part of the welterweight Grand Prix they have going on. Rory retained his belt by majority draw. I finished watching that like 20 minutes before we started this podcast. I would have scored it, 3-2 Rory as far as round goes. I think the way it broke down is someone gave Fitch a 10-8 in one of his 2 rounds, which I could not for the life of me figure out which round they would have given him a 10-8 for. Maybe it's just because I'm a Rory fan, but it's weird that in 2019, John Fitch almost won, but Rory retained the belt, so that technically makes him move on to the Grand Prix, and he's fighting Neiman Gracie June 14th, I believe it is, on the city card that has a Chael and a Lyoto on it.
So here's my question: Did you see his post fight interview, and what did he say?
I didn't see it. I saw some of the quotes. The most important quote that everybody was talking about was Rory said he doesn't have it in him. He doesn't have like the killer edge in him to hurt people anymore. So I saw a lot of people messaging me about that, saying, "Oh, do you think religion, changed Rory or something?" Maybe it's religion. Maybe it's him having a kid. Maybe it's just him getting older and seeing the effects of the sport that are had by other people. But Rory McDonald, without his killer edge, that does take away part of what made Rory Rory. So that could be concerning.
I mean, like a lot of it, right? Because I mean, Rory, he's good technically everywhere, but he's not like elite.
He doesn't stand out hard in any category.
And
like his one standout category was his killer edge.
Yeah, exactly. And athletically, he's not amazing either. Like he's good. He's tall. He's got a long frame for that weight class, but he's not crazy powerful. He's not crazy fast. That was the thing that really set him apart, was he was a straight murderer.
Yeah, he got to go to GSP's dark place, and you could count on that to be the deciding motivator if it was a close fight.
So yeah, I mean, how old is John Fitch now? Is he 52, 53 years old? If you're getting a majority draw against John Fitch, I don't know if that bodes well for Rory for the remainder of his career. I don't know
where the fight was. Maybe they were using the old rules or something where they favor takedowns more. But I mean, he wasn't doing a crazy. He got one cut from an elbow from, I want to say it was not full mount, guard. And that was like the most significant thing he did all night with all of his takedowns. Like he was getting some what looked like softer shots of ground and pound just to be able to keep it on the ground, not get stood up. But he did get stood up a few times. So I maybe it was bad judges. Maybe they're still using the old rules where takedowns are favored a little more heavily. But nothing I saw in that fight warranted a 10-8 from either guy. Yeah. I think that's how they did the scoring.
I mean, again, To me, the scoring is sort of like secondary. I like he gets to retain his title. You know, it was a majority draw. It was just more the fact that the fight was that close with John Fitch. Like it just
Yeah,
shouldn't be.
I was expecting a 2-3 round fight from Rory at that point. I was expecting some kind of ground and pound, most likely elbows, and it was actually competitive for a good bit of the fight.
I don't know. Well, so it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. I mean, there's still a lot of good guys ahead of him in this Grand
Well,
Prix, and if he
yeah,
doesn't get
for
it
the Grand
together,
Prix,
yeah, it could be ugly.
yeah, he's got Neiman Gracie next, and then on the other side of the bracket, he has the winner of Douglas Lima and Michael Venom Page, which he just fought Douglas Lima, I believe it was last year, and even that was an extremely close fight. I think he won 3 rounds to 2, but that was mostly off of fight IQ errors from Douglas Lima. Douglas seemed content to just stay on his back and not really. I think it was he was staying on his back and he wasn't really working for any escapes or anything in the fifth round, and it was like he just gave the fifth round away. Because again, in that fight, it seemed like Roy didn't have his killer edge in that fight either. And so if Lima possibly worked on a few escapes, he probably would be the champion right now, not Rory. So that's concerning. I don't really, I'm not on the MVP hype train. I expect Lima to almost not quite run through him, but close. And so, I mean, Neiman Gracie, we know he's not bringing a lot to the striking table, but if John Fitch can get Rory down in 2019, I'm assuming Neiman Gracie might be able to. And if Rory shows up like he did then, he might have some problems. We might have a good upset.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I hope it picks up a little bit of steam because um, the heavyweight Grand Prix was the most into Bellator I've ever been. I mean, like I was actually following that. I was watching some of the matches, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the timing of it, the format. There just hasn't been as much marketing, whatever. But the welterweight Grand Prix has not grabbed me, and I've heard that from a lot of people, which is weird
I
because
think,
I think like the competition's better, right?
oh, it definitely is. Because, I mean, the heavyweight Grand Prix, who was it? It was Rampage, Chael, Mir, Fedor, Mitrione, Roy Nelson, King Mo, and Bader. So, I mean, most of those guys you would agree are on the back nine of their careers. But, I mean, right now in the welterweight Grand Prix, you've got guys who are in there. You've got guys who haven't even hit their prime yet. Like they had Ed Ruth and Neiman Gracie's in it. I think the issue is the welterweight Grand Prix is exclusively on DAZN, and
Mm,
most people don't want to pay for DAZN, even when it was $5 a month. And now they just restructured their pricing because they signed so many, high-profile boxers. So now I believe it's $20 a month, or it's $99 for a year if you pay for it all up front. And I mean, I think you and me are right in the middle of the MMA. What's the word for it? The target audience for or demographic. We're right in the target demographic. I mean, you're a little bit more of a reasonable adult than I am. I don't just have an extra $100 laying around to just throw up for it up front. And there's months I don't even have an extra $20. So I mean, I think that's probably what's standing a big barrier between people resonating with the welterweight Grand Prix is that paywall watching on his own. Because I know quite a few of the welterweight or the heavyweight Grand Prix were just on Paramount, which pretty much everybody has Paramount.
yeah, that makes sense. So interesting. So questions about the future of Rory McDonald, maybe Bellator as a promotion moving forward.
Hmm. It definitely is interesting. There's a lot of paywalls now to watch MMA nowadays, and it's getting a little old. I know that's keeping a lot of people out. It is interesting that this, I didn't have this written down anywhere, but PFL, their second season will be on ESPN Plus. So PFL may have a chance to, get their name a little bit more up there once their second season starts this summer. They might be able to get a little bit more attention than Bellator.
All right, sounds good. Let's keep moving. I'm itching for Endgame. That's
I know. I'm about it. We'll just cover this. We don't even have to talk about these fights. We'll just cover it. Alima Leigh McFarland, I hope I'm saying that right. She defended her flyweight title. She won by doctor stoppage. She had an amazing cut. I posted on my in the rounds. She got a great cut from an elbow. It was a doctor stoppage for that. Phil Davis defeated Liam McGree. They had a rematch. Davis won the first fight by unanimous decision. And this fight, he won by round 3. I believe it was tap to strikes. Liam McGree broke his jaw. Posted a picture of that today. Just clean break. Could not be cleaner. Lost a tooth, so he had to tap to strikes once some ground and pound started. Benson Henderson defeated, who was this, Adam Piccolotti by split decision. And then one of my personal favorite, I guess we call them prospects in the sport right now, Gaston Bolanos. He fought Nathan Stolen. I honestly have no idea who Nathan Stolen is, but he won by a first round K. It was a good, I want to say it was a left hook. It wasn't quite as flashy as some of his elbows that he's landed for stoppages, but it was still a solid KO. But I mean, that's pretty much it for Bellator. I don't think I've ever once in my life watched the actual prelims of Bellator. That it's a wild, wild west down there. It's like guys 0-0 versus 1-0 or 0-1. So I love me some UFC prelims with Bellator prelims. That's something I'm interested in. I can't talk about those. Oh goodness. And I guess we're gonna move on to news after this. I'm sure you'll have a great opinion on this. Tito Ortiz signed with Combate Americanas, and he is scheduled possibly, well, he's potentially going to fight Dos Caras, or better known as Alberto Del Rio from the WWE, who I think he's the president of Combate Americas.
What?
Dude, do you remember that fantastic fight with Mirko Krokop that he had where he wore the luchador mask, got kicked in the head, and then as soon as he got kicked, blood started leaking out the mask?
No, that's incredible though.
Fine piece of pride history.
Tito's just fully embracing this twilight part of his career. It's like,
He's just going full fuck. Maybe he's trying to get back with the Latin American crowd after all of his Donald Trump support. Maybe this is his ploy to get back in with the Latin American crowd.
it's just like let's just make each fight a little bit more ridiculous and out there until
If you put in any other legend's name, you'd be like, that doesn't sound quite right. But if you put in Tito Ortiz's name, you're like, oh fuck yeah, that's exactly what Tito would do.
perfect.
Tito doing Tito. Oh, I only have two fight announcements that I didn't keep very good notes this week, people. I was more excited about just getting to talk about Endgame, just like Aaron. Sean O'Malley, after his USADA suspension got announced, that I believe that's already finished already since it was retroactive. He's taking on Marlon Vera at UFC 239. Damian Maia will be taking on Anthony Rocco Martin, who for some reason is dead set on being called Anthony Rocco Martin now. It used to just be Anthony Martin. That's going to take place at UFC Minneapolis. The other big news, I don't know if you saw this. It was really interesting to me because I was a fan of Tom Lawler. Do you remember when he got suspended for Austrian
Yes.
2 years ago? And then the UFC kept him on the roster throughout almost his entire suspension. And then I want to say it was like a month before his suspension was up, the UFC cut him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So according to Tom, he failed for, I don't, picograms is what I want to say, but whatever the measurement of Austrian in the body is, he failed for less milligram, whatever the fuck it is, than any of the four fighters who it was announced in that, four fighter Austrian failure that they just announced this week. He tested lower than all of them. He was suspended for 2 years. They were all given 6-month suspensions. And USADA, after he made such an uproar about it, USADA even came out and said, yeah, if you had failed that test in 2019, there's a good chance you probably would have been suspended for 6 months instead. And that ended his MMA career. He's moved on to pro wrestling. He's in the indies. He's doing pretty well with that. But that suspension legitimately ruined his career, MMA-wise, ended it, and forced him to move on to a new venture to be able to make money for his family. And the weirdest part about it was he could not find the source of his tainted supplement. And I think 2 or 3 of the 4 could not find the source of their Austrian failures either. And they somehow get a 6-month while he got 2 years.
Yeah, I see. I have a theory about all this.
Oh, I can't wait.
This is what I think happened. I think John Jones broke USADA. Like
Mentally, physically, everything.
just spiritually and like a deep emotional level, like he broke them, right? Because the UFC hires USADA, right? And USADA's like, we are the absolute enforcement of anti-doping. We know everything. We know how this works. We are infallible. If you cheat, we're
judge,
gonna,
jury, executioner.
exactly. We're gonna catch you, and we make no mistakes. And John Jones is like, hold on, boys.
Hold my beer.
More like take my blood sample, but that's a little bit gross. But you get the gist. Like, and they're like looking at his, and they're like, wait, it's pulsing and it's there and it's not there, and like, how does this even make any sense? We don't know what to do. And then with a lot of the tainted supplements, like I think they're sort of learning on the fly, and that John Jones was the not even the straw, that was like the anvil that broke the camel's back, and they're just like, we don't even fucking know anymore. Like, this is weird. All right, 6 months. Where in the past they're like, no, like we caught you red-handed, you're done. 2 years. And I think
they had to be hyped when TJ failed for the EPO, and they could like 100% prove that he failed for the EPO. They were finally like, fuck yes, we can actually get somebody for what we said we're going to do. We're going to come out here looking like champs. And then like half the MMA fans like, 2 years is too long.
Yeah, but we actually like TJ. Stop it. Leave TJ alone. Come on.
He's little. He's just a child. He doesn't know any better.
They put it in a sippy cup, and it wasn't TJ's fault.
He didn't inject it. It was in his bottle. Oh goodness, that one hurt. That was my first, like top five fighter who's failed for like a legit PED. I mean, Cowboy has
Yeah.
that diuretic back in like 2008 or some shit. I mean, yeah, it's cheating. I don't. It's no EPO, but I mean, TJ was in like my top five favorite fighters to watch, and the EPO, I was like, well, I got to judge him like everybody else. Fuck
Yeah.
TJ at this point.
Me too. I mean, I think I said this in one of the chats we had, but I was like, in a weird way, I was like a little bit proud of him, where I was like, well, okay, you were cheating, which is terrible, and now you're on my shit list. But at least you were cheating with something that would actually help you, as opposed to so many of these fighters are taking performance enhancers that aren't actually going to help them in MMA. I'm like, well, you at least took probably like the most
I know you were
viable.
cheating, but at least you cheated the right way.
Yeah, at least it was productive cheating. I mean, I guess to a point. I mean, it allowed him to get knocked out in 30 something seconds by Henry Cejudo, but that's a whole nother story, I guess.
Oh goodness, there were so many questions about that. Oh, that one hurt though. I won't lie. That one
Dude,
really
I
sucked.
just want to know why he did it. Like, when, like,
I have a theory because I know everybody says oh he's been doing it his whole career. Well, USADA or what's his name, Nowitzki came out and said they did test him for EPO for the Rafael Sun Sao, and who'd he fight after that?
mhm.
Remember. But they said he was tested for EPO fight. So if if he actually passed that test clean, I know Schaub or someone says there's a new EPO test since then. But let's just play off of he technically passed those tests, so we'll say he didn't have it in him for those fights. Did he start taking EPO for the Cody fights? Or is it more likely that he had a death cut down to 25? His stamina was most likely drained. And that's when he was just like, fuck it, I can barely get out of bed. I need something to boost me up. I need to at least be able to make it to the fight, get my show purse.
Could have been. I mean, there's no answer where it's like, oh, this makes sense. Like, now you're exonerated. We love you again, TJ. But yeah, I just want to know the thought process, because it does not make sense.
At least he apologized. At least he came out and admitted, like, yeah, guys, I fucked up. Most of the guys just ride that I don't know what happened defense till they die. So I mean, I'm pissed that he was cheating. That's complete bullshit. But at least you get like that 2%. Well, at least he admitted it.
Yeah, for sure.
You
It's
get a
it.
little bit of brownie points for that.
I mean, that's a great. That's something that I remember. That it pops up in all these coaching books, and just sort of like motivational, type of speakers. Like, everybody fucks up. It's gonna happen. Everybody will fuck up big in some point in their life, and it's always about how you handle those fuck ups and move forward. I mean, that's almost a career killing fuck up, but at least it does seem like he's moving forward instead of making it worse.
Yeah, he's taking the time. He's getting a surgery. I saw that he was still coaching at the same time. So I mean, if his students are still willing to learn from him, at least he's going to be contributing to the martial arts world for the next 2 years, and he'll have some time to think about how bad he fucked up.
Oh, but dude, buckle up for a professional level segue here. Uh, it
I'm
actually,
ready.
it actually cracked me up, because on my Instagram feed, Blastyd, that's spelled Blastyd, um,
Spell it out. You got to spell it all the way out.
B,
Remember,
Jesus,
MMA fans we're dealing with.
Jesus Christ, Blastyd,
There we
Blasted.
go.
I just posted one of my old posts, because I used to do these really kind of complex like fight posters and stuff like this, and I had this. It was Team Alpha Male, but the A was
I
like
saw
was
that.
the
So
Avengers A, and it's like Uriah Faber is Nick Fury, Paige Van Zandt's Captain Marvel, Chad Mendes is Wolverine, so forth and so on, and then of course TJ Dillashaw was Captain America, and in the caption I'm just like, oh man, this post has not aged well. And then one of the commenters goes, TJ was on that super soldier serum. I was like, yep. Wow, that was
you,
prophetic. I didn't even know when I made it.
you know that person was just waiting for that comment. They probably remembered the post back from when you did it the first time. Like, oh, I can't fucking wait.
And I was like, huh, that's right. Captain America is a ped user.
He is the first successful U.S. PED user. Which,
So,
granted, he technically got it from the Nazis, if I had to guess. Let's be real. They were all the scientists we stole after, or I guess that was during World War II. Maybe not. Maybe Nazis aren't responsible for him.
I do not believe that they got the super soldier serum from the Nazis, if my
I
Avengers
don't
memory
see.
is correct.
I can't remember though. Remember what's his skull? He had powers Captain America. Like he was matching him strength for strength,
Hmm.
and we know that wasn't natural. And
Yeah,
it's not like he was using any Infinity Stones or anything.
no,
I feel like in the comics he might have been the first attempt at the Super Soldier, and then that like drove him crazy or something.
Yes.
And then they got Steve Rogers, so maybe he was.
Well,
Maybe it wasn't.
I thought it was actually almost this like not like a parallel for the atomic bomb, but that same sort of idea of like competing technologies, where they were both in a race for the technology, and
Yeah, it was their little arms race.
exactly, yeah, they're both trying to create super soldiers, and the Nazis
Dude,
ended up with the Red Skull, who was driven crazy, and then we get the perfect blonde haired Captain America, who's the symbol of justice and peace, because America's great, never does anything wrong, and fuck anyone who says elsewhere.
he's what every white person after a haircut. You know, just like super comic nerd right now, just screaming at us since we don't know the origin of Red Skull. Like I'm an MCU fan, people. I didn't read the comics as much as a kid. I just read whatever my library had. I grew up in fucking Hicktown. We didn't have comics at stores or even comic book stores. You just had whatever the fucking library had in the parking lot.
Yeah, I'm not that deep into it either. I used to read some comics as a kid, but what I would do is I'd get those. I mean, they call them graphic novels, but it's basically just an anthology of comic books in a bound book, so you could just read the whole thing without buying, weekly. And so I remember there were some good storylines I read, like the whole like Death and Return of Superman arc. I read as a kid. I remember that, but definitely never went like deep into the history of characters. Did not care that much.
Yeah, like when I was like 11 or 10, somewhere, somewhere in that. When I was playing baseball, our county library was in the parking lot of the Baseplex, and when we would have two-a-day games, we would go out there and we would sit in the library in between games because there was air conditioning in there. And they had these big-ass books, and it was like the first 100 X-Men comics or the first 100 Spider-Man, and they were all in black and white. I don't know why they didn't get them in color, but I would read like half of those, and I would get bored and just return it. It's like, that's how I learned about the superheroes. But then, dude, I'm a 90s baby. I know you're a little older than me. I was 90s babies. I had that prime X-Men cartoon when I was a kid with that great intro music, and that was what started. And then I got like Justice League, the animated series as a kid. I mean, the kids nowadays, they have like crazy Avengers cartoons and stuff. They got it really made. But like I had that prime 90s X-Men cartoons, and that was what started the superhero love for me.
I got it. And I watched those as well. I'm a little bit older, but that was still. Trying to remember. I think maybe I was in middle school when those came out. That
I
seems
don't know
right.
when they came out. I know I started watching them, I think when I lived in South Carolina for like a year. So that would have been when I was like 4 or 5 is like my first memory. I remember seeing that because we had this janky ass entertainment system my dad built when it was really just, little towers with the big boob tube TV on top of. I remember walking into the basement one day and that theme song playing and just got so hyped because I knew it was X-Men time.
So that were those were the origins of our comic book / superhero affinity, and then I mean it's weird. Like I think probably both of us, and then many millions and millions of other people have been on this like long, like multi-year crazy ride with the MCU that is just
Yeah, we're a decade in now. I think it started in 2008 or 2009.
yeah. It was crazy. I mean just watching, and they did a very good job of reminding you of this in Endgame of like
Hold on.
almost like
We should just tell people Endgame is about to start getting talked about most likely. We're going to slip up. We're deep in MCU now, people. So if you haven't seen Endgame, click out now. I don't care. We're like 40 minutes in. If you need to leave now so you don't get Endgame spoiled, do it. It's fine.
yeah, click out, go watch it, and come back.
There you go.
And
Just pause it. Go run to your theater. Dedicate 3 hours and 2 minutes out of your time. Make sure you piss before you go in. Then come back and start the
oh
podcast.
yeah, thank you for clarifying. I meant immediately. Like don't you still have to listen to the rest of the podcast. That's absolutely prerequisite. But go watch Endgame first. Exactly, you got it.
So there's your spoiler warning, people. I just say the word spoiler warning one more time. There it is. We're going full MCU now, so buckle up.
So yeah, it's 10 years. I mean, I remember and points in Endgame. I remember, oh my god, like right, that's where I was in my life when I saw the very first Iron Man movie. That's where I was. I mean, I was in a movie theater in Cleveland, Ohio, of all places, when I drinking. What was it? It was this like indie movie theater that served. What was the name of that brewing company? It was like a local Cleveland brewing company that had like Burning River, because the river in Cleveland, the Cuyahoga, I think it was Cuyahoga River, caught on fire at one point. But they would like serve beer, so like drinking beer with this like rowdy, freaking repressed Cleveland audience watching of the very first Avengers, just people just going nuts, and it's like just crazy to how far we've come to get to Endgame, and then. I think this obviously wasn't the conclusion of the MCU, but it was definitely kind of like a
Well,
capstone, a
it was
changing
the end
point.
of they do it in phases the way they talk about it, and then
Hmm.
they're doing what they call sagas. So they did announce this is the end of the Infinity Saga. So we're done with the Infinity Stones for a little while, it seems like. And as far as phases go, I don't remember when Phase 3 started. I think it was somewhere around Guardians of the Galaxy or 2014, 2015. So it was both the end of, or no, we have one more movie for Phase. We have Spider-Man: Far From Home this summer. That's the
Hmm.
last one of Phase 3, but the Infinity Saga is over now. So yeah, they plan it out pretty well. Well, like I came from a family, we didn't really go to the movies more than maybe twice a year, and the one guaranteed time we would go to the movies is Christmas Day. We're the family that we get Chinese food on Christmas Day and then we go to the movies. We never saw superhero movies. I don't know why. It's kind of weird because, like, I've told y'all, like, me and my dad didn't get along very well. We were opposite on a lot of things, but we both like superheroes. So it never made sense that we weren't seeing the superhero movies when they were in theaters. But it seems like Marvel doesn't release a lot around Christmas anyway. So like I don't think I started seeing Marvel movies in theaters till like 2013, 2014. Like I just graduated high school or something. I
Did,
think maybe Guardians of the Galaxy honestly might have been the first one I saw in theaters by myself.
did the both of you have like the same favorite heroes, or was there a big
Oh,
personality
he
difference?
he wasn't like that gung ho about it. It was just he was the demographic where you're like he's the perfect, male 40 to 55. If it's action and there's white people in it, he'll turn it on. So like the all the superheroes that early on in the MCU like that all fit his category. Iron Man, Captain America. He sees a white dude as a superhero, he'll stop and start watching that. He was that kind of demographic. So it was more like he wasn't an MCU fan or a Marvel fan, but like he liked the action genre, and so superhero movies were good enough.
How would have he responded to Black Panther?
I'm trying to remember if we watched it before he died.
I like hesitated
Didn't
to
it come
ask
out like
that.
February last year? Well, I
Yeah.
know the answer, but I know my mom also listens to this, so I don't, want to disparage him that much. But
All right. Yeah,
Black
I
Panther
wasn't.
would
I'm not
not have
trying to
been his
like.
favorite superhero. Let's put it like that.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm not trying to like shit on your dad.
Oh,
That's not that.
I, oh,
It's.
please.
It,
People know I shit on him. Like there's reasons for it. Black Panther would not have been his favorite. He would not have been anywhere in his top 10 for the reason you're thinking, people.
all right. I also. It's weird. I mean, I for me, Black Panther wasn't quite as high as I think for a lot of people it was. I mean, I liked it. It was an excellent movie, and I thought Michael B. Jordan did so much with that
Killed.
role. Like that, I think so many actors that Killmonger character would have been unremarkable, and he just did an amazing job. And for whatever reason, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's in my top 10, but it's not like number one or top three with a bullet for like some people.
Oh goodness, let's go down this rabbit hole. What's your top five then for MCU? It doesn't have to be in an order. You can just give a general podium. It doesn't have to be in uh whatever order. What's your top five?
Okay. Well, so I thought about this a little bit because I've heard a lot of people debating where does Endgame fit in, and
My answer for that isn't gonna please a lot of people.
well, let me preface it for the way I look at this is like they've been telling this huge story, right? It's like so like if you're reading a book, like a novel, this is an epic novel, and you're saying, okay, what is my favorite chapter? A lot of times, and I'd say not even a lot of times, usually the last chapter isn't going to be your favorite, but it's what needs to happen to conclude that story the way it should be wrapped up. And so that's kind of how I felt about Endgame. I thought they could have done better with it. I thought that being said, it was a fantastic job wrapping up this phase one, concluding this epic story they've been telling. But by nowhere, no means was it my favorite chapter.
Yeah,
So
it checked a lot of boxes for me. Like, it did wrap up a lot of storylines good. The problem for me is I'm a huge Thor fan, and they butchered my boy. We already give the spoiler warnings. Fat, depressed Thor playing Fortnite with Korg in his little shack in New Asgard, like that just hurt to see. You could have easily conveyed the guilt and the depression that came along with being the reason the snap happened in his mind without turning to all the stupid physical comedy. And that just killed that immediately dropped it from like an A plus to, I mean, it was down to like a 90, 89 on my rating score just for choosing that. What felt like to me, it was just kind of cheap comedy was what they used to make him for the better part of Endgame with him.
Uh, okay, so I didn't actually mind that, I guess, as much as you did, because um, I think the Thor character is actually the one we've seen have the most evolution in the whole MCU. Because if you remember, like the first Thor movies came out, and they were pretty bad, and he was
The first one was like a solid C minus at best, and then the second one is legitimately one of the worst two movies in the MCU. Dark World is just
terrible.
terrible. I even rewatched it 2 weeks ago just to be like, man, was I being overly harsh or something? Like, did I just let the hype influence how I felt about this movie? Rewatch it, I was like, woo, wish I had that 2 hours back.
Well, and also the character itself just had very little depth. He's just, I'm Thor of Asgard, and I'm big and strong. Like there was no emotional level. There wasn't. And then all of a sudden, Taika Waititi gets a hold of the character. He changes the whole tone of the movie. It goes almost to like a hard comedy, um, and I think Ragnarok is my second favorite of all the MCU
It's my number
movies.
one. I tell people that with zero shame whatsoever. Ragnarok is my favorite MCU movie. I've seen that shit probably 30 times at this point.
Well, and on top of that, there's really good character development of Thor, of who he is, who he's trying to be, the whole family Asgard dynamic, everything that's going on. He just hit so many great notes in that movie. So that's definitely my top three. The first Guardians of the Galaxy is probably still one for me. I enjoyed the hell out of it the first time I watched it. It's weird. That's the only MCU movie I've ever watched with my mom, and my mom loved that movie, which is like she's as far away from the target audience that you could possibly get. Like
Yeah.
zero interest in superheroes, anything, and she was like, "All right, let me see one of these movies. Which one should I watch?" I was like, "Oh, I know this is perfect for you." She had so much fun watching that movie. So like, if I could love it on first watch, I could still love it on second watch, and my mom loved it. I mean, that's why it's number one for me. And then I think for me, the Infinity War movie was three, and after that, I'm not real sure.
I want to say my top five is Ragnarok number one, give Infinity War number two. I think Infinity War was vastly better. Well, not vastly, but I take Infinity War over Endgame. It felt so much better done to me. I don't know all the reasons. I guess it's because we went in not knowing if Thanos would win or not, and so like there was actual suspense. You didn't know how the movie was going to end. Are we going to get Thanos winning, or is it just going to be, oh, the superheroes will win again? So there was that suspense like up until what, the last 2 minutes of the movie. And in game going into that, like we knew the Avengers are going to win long term. They're not just going to wipe out everybody. They're not going to take out all six of the Avengers of the original six. Like they're going to get the W somehow. So like for me, not having that suspense there, that kind of took away from it. I did see a lot of spoilers for Endgame going in, so that took away the shock value of a lot of the deaths and stuff. Uh, so for me, like my five, Ragnarok, Infinity War, Guardians of the Galaxy, probably Civil War, and then maybe Guardians of the Galaxy 2 or Doctor Strange. Those kind of switch in depending on what mood I'm in.
Well, see, okay, so I think the other thing too, I think there were some problems to Endgame that were just inherent to Endgame. Some pacing issues, some script issues probably. But the other part was Infinity War. You could still watch as a standalone movie. Like if you'd never seen any of the other Marvel movies, you could still watch it and sort of figure out what's going on. Like you get introduced to the characters very quickly, you can kind of figure out what's going on. Maybe you don't have all the backstory, you don't completely understand the emotional resonance of what's going on, but like you could pick it up. If you tried to watch Endgame without seeing like 14 other movies, you'd have no clue what the F was going on. It just
Oh,
doesn't make any
there were some
sense.
dudes in the there were some dudes in the row in front of me. I don't want to be judgmental, but it seemed like they might enjoy a little bit of the crack. I'm not sure, but they stood up at the end of the movie and they were like, "That was the dumbest shit I've ever seen. Who the fuck risks going to jail for recording this? I want my fucking money back." I was like, either you're not Marvel fans or y'all are just high in the theater right now. Like, I may not have liked it that much, but it was a good movie. And it seemed like they probably weren't just huge Marvel fans. I think they probably just came in as, oh, this is the big movie, let's go see it. But boy, I was expecting a fight to break out between somebody and those people in the theater.
How much of the theater experience of itself does sort of sway you when you're watching one of these movies?
Like how everybody, like how the crowd reacts to it, or like how the actual theater itself is built and whatnot.
How the crowd probably more than anything. if
I
that
don't
makes
really
sense.
care. It's the same as watching fights. I kind of tune out everything around me. Um, I know in some Marvel movies, I've noticed the way people react, like in Infinity War when Captain America catches the spear and steps out of the shadow. I remember the theater I was in then had a huge pop, and like I enjoyed that. Like I like seeing other people enjoy the moments like I did. But when I saw Endgame, dead quiet. I think there was maybe two or three moments in the entire movie when people like laughed or even reacted out loud. I don't know if I just went when Marvel fans weren't in there yet, or if the movie just wasn't resonating with a lot of people.
It,
But it doesn't affect me a lot. Like I'm gonna enjoy it based off of what I care about, not what how the crowd reacts or anything.
so and you know it's funny thinking about it. I think the Avengers, the first Avengers movie, has to be my top five, because that's one of the two movies I've seen in theaters that was elevated dramatically by the crowd. Like the first one, I saw South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Cut in theaters, and it was nonstop laughter for the first 30 minutes. Like an entire audience just hysterically busting up. Like you got like a literal endorphin high from just going to see that movie with a crowd around you. Shout out to South Park. And the second one was Avengers. Like people were so hyped. They were cheering. I mean, I had to watch the movie a second time because there were just like lines of dialogue you just couldn't hear because people were like cheering or laughing so hard. And yeah, you know what? Like there was some of that in Endgame. I mean, I saw it on Thursday night,
So did I.
but you're right. It wasn't as much. Nothing to that level.
I don't know. Maybe because it was so hyped up, maybe people just felt a little down. There was a few weird things in the movie for me, like Professor Hulk just becoming Professor Hulk in the time skip. I was really expecting them to give us, I don't need 20 minutes on his development, but I was expecting maybe 5 minutes of kind of a Banner staring in the mirror, seeing Hulk in the reflection, them having a discussion about Hulk gets the body, Banner gets the mind, seeing how that could go down, and it was like okay, Banner's in the Hulkbuster suit. We just chopped Thanos' head off. Fast forward 5 years. Oh, Hulk's eating brunch and kids are asking him for selfies at a diner. I was like, where's the development, guys? Like, Banner says, like, oh, yeah, I had a talk with Hulk and, I get to take over now. But I would have liked to see that. It felt like they dropped the ball kind of on that. I already said I didn't like Fat Thor. What else was it? There's a few other things I had on the list that were weird to me. Nothing huge coming off my mind right now. Do you have any problems with it?
Oh yeah, I mean, okay. So I mean, the biggest problem just as a movie as a whole that I had was the pacing. So like the last hour is absolutely insane.
Yeah,
Just
the last hour is one of the best moments in MCU,
just
period.
just bananas nonstop. I mean, like giant CGI fight, all kinds of things going on, all sorts of emotions flying around. But like I mean, the first 30 minutes are like super slow. Like it's like the first 30 minutes you might as well call it like the emo Avengers because are you going to start with an action sequence like some of the other movies? No, we're going to start at a picnic. All right, like and then
Dude, for me, I actually loved that. The cold open straight into Hawkeye losing his entire family. Like I liked them giving Hawkeye the start of the movie. I love Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye. I know comic book wise he's not the most accurate as far as it goes, but I love snarky actor like turning,
mhm.
roles into snarky roles. So I've loved Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye. So them giving him just that little bit of shine at the beginning of the movie, I actually like that. That was one of
Oh
my favorite parts of the movie was him getting to start off like that's his character development
yeah,
turning into Ronin.
that's fine. But then they followed up with like another, I think it was 30 or 40 minutes of things that similar sort of pacing. So it's like,
Well,
Tony's.
didn't it within the first 30 minutes? Didn't they kill Thanos in the first 30?
No, that
Sorry for
was
interrupting you.
that was. I think I timed it out. It was like 30 minutes, and then they go to kill Thanos. So like nothing really happens. Like I let's see. There's
I feel like
there's
I need to pull up Wikipedia and like
there's the
read
picnic scene. There's
while going
Tony
through
Stark
this.
and Nebula playing paper football. There's Tony and Cap, being snickety and arguing. There's Captain America leading a support group. Oh, by the way, that was probably this is just me, but like when I when they got to the Captain America support group scene, I was like, please let this be the moment that we find out that Captain America is just like super homophobic and doesn't understand gay relationships.
I
Like,
know there's always these memes and jokes about Captain America, like when he wakes up in 2012, when he's first introduced, and he's like seeing black people being able to vote and talk and drive cars and everything. Like, what if Captain America just came out of the ice and dropped an N-bomb? And I always thought it would be funny if he was doing that or dropping like homophobic slurs or some shit. Obviously, a horrible thing to do, but if that could be. Granted, that would probably bury Marvel if they did that, but that would have been amazing if you just stared at the dude like that. Like,
the guy's like,
hold on, you went on a date with a man?
it's like,
Where were your wives?
sir, did you ever consider that's why you were crying? It's unnatural, sir. Do you not understand? Because they played that in the first Avengers movie. They played that up so hard, right? Like Captain America being from another time, not getting references. It's
Yeah,
like,
Avengers and Winter Soldier too. Like he had his little list of things to catch up. I was surprised like black voting rights weren't on there somewhere, or like desegregation of public schools.
yeah, but I mean that was the whole first 30 minutes. Then there's the whole thing of like Ant-Man getting out of the quantum realm, and he's just walking down some random street, and there's like one sullen kid riding a bicycle, and he's like, "What happened?" And the kid just stares at him angrily and rides off. It's like,
By the way, did you notice the subtle cameo of Kim Jong in there as the security guard at
I
the?
did. It wasn't just. It was Ken Jeong, and it was Oh, I can't remember her name. It's like a vet. There was so it was.
Oh, the black lady from Community.
Community, right? Well, so
I think I missed it. I think I ran to the bathroom once I saw Scott jump out and see. I think that was when I ran to the bathroom really quick, so I had to take a leak.
so
I think I might have missed her.
so it was one of the Russo's directed episodes of Community, and that was the connection there.
Yeah, I've seen in the past. There's been different actors from Community each get little cameos. Like the Indian dude from Community. I think he's in Winter Soldier. He's one of the Shield guys who won't actually listen to Hydra. And I've seen. I think there was one or two others. And of course, what's his name? Donald Glover is what's his name? Man, I'm losing all the names right here. The
Prowler,
the purple dude from Spider-Verse.
the Prowler.
Prowler, yeah.
Yeah.
They get a little connection. So I didn't see Yvette. That would have been funny to see. I'm kind of mad I took the leak break then.
But so basically, it's a very slow start, and then they immediately go kill Thanos, which I really want some like improv everywhere group to like book out almost an entire theater, and then when they kill Thanos in the first 30 minutes, just like stand up and leave, and have that like one person like, wait, what? What's going on?
Move over, guys.
It's like, and they're like, yeah, it's just end credits from here, just enjoy it.
There was no end credit scene. Let's go.
But so like that happened, and then in terms of like actual action, and let's be honest, it's an MCU movie. Like there does have to be a fair amount of action sequences. You don't actually get all that much of it in the quote unquote time heist, right? I thought that whole section, like the time heist section, was probably the poorest handled part in the whole movie.
Yeah, it felt kind of clunky. Like, and some of the like who they sent to where, like obviously Thor makes sense sending him back to Asgard for what was it, the Reality Stone to get it out of Jane Foster. Mm-hmm. But sending with Rocket, that was an odd choice.
Well, you know why they did that though, right? Because they're trying to build a rapport. Because it looks like Thor's gonna
for the Asgardians of the Galaxy, which I'm 100% for.
Oh hell yeah!
Take two of my favorite groups, put them together. That would be glorious. Throw Korg in there. Throw Valkyrie's got to lead Asgard now. People didn't see. Oh well, we're way past that. Valkyrie leading Asgard is going to be an odd choice to me too. Well, I was kind of hoping Loki might pop in somewhere when they were handing the mantle off.
So here's what I think should have happened. I think the whole part where they okay. So a couple things, just plot things. So first of all, like there's this whole obstacle of how do we even go do the time heist and go back in time? Tony Stark's like, no, it's impossible. Why we never thought of this before? Because it's improbable and stupid and it would never work. And then, it's like, yeah, obviously time travel is really difficult. They're like, nope. Actually, apparently if you have a really fancy coffee table and you just run a model, then it works. Which, like, I thought there had to be...
Talk about how Scott figured it out first, who has absolutely no formal training on this. Like, he apparently got almost as smart as Tony Stark just off of listening to Hank Pym. Does that make a lot of sense to people?
I didn't have a problem with that because he didn't know any of the mechanics of it. He just kind of had the observation of, oh wow, like time works differently in the quantum realm. Maybe we could use that to time travel. But he didn't. He had no concept of how to actually execute
Well, I
it.
thought he was arguing it with Tony. I might be remembering it wrong, but I thought he was having like a little argument about the plausibility of it happening with Tony on the front porch.
Yeah, he was, but it was he was arguing it based on like
Back to the Future.
old movies that he had seen. So, but yeah, so like, and I thought that wasn't that didn't bother me. I was like, it was just kind of sloppy writing. I mean, I think all they had to do was find some way to just give Tony all of Pym's research, and like ostensibly, like Scott could have gotten a hold of that. Like he gets a hold of the shrinking lab and just gives it to Tony, and then it's like, oh, these were the missing pieces, and Tony puts together what he knows with everything that Pym had figured out, and then like boom, you have time travel. That would have been
Well, even
easy.
he was the one, wasn't he the one who grabbed the stuff out of Hank's lab in the 1970s when they went back in time, when they fucked up at the first time in New York?
Yes.
Like, even grab some notes there. Like,
Uh,
I'm sure he was working on the quantum realm then.
oh yeah, but they'd already time traveled by that point.
Yeah,
That's a weird
I guess
paradox.
so.
If you have to time travel to figure out how to invent time
Time
travel,
travel.
um,
I
but
guess you got me there.
but okay, but I think that whole part where they go back to the '70s just shouldn't have been in there. I mean, it was like a tiny bit of character development for Captain America. It was a little bit more character development for Tony Stark when he meets his dad, and his dad's talking about how he was always kind of selfish and wouldn't do anything that didn't benefit him. And that's sort of setting up for the end of the movie. But
Yeah, that's basically all it was for.
but
Was
but
just
yeah.
felt so clunky.
But here's the thing. I'm like, okay, like Tony Stark, you can figure out in the span of apparently an evening how to invent time travel, but your best plan for getting what was it? They were trying to get the Tesseract, right? Was to induce a heart attack in your past self using Ant-Man. Like that was your plan. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, for genius playboy philanthropist, blah blah blah. I didn't feel like the smartest man. I did thoroughly enjoy seeing Thor do the the clear paddle thing with Mjolnir. That was a good little bit of. I got a little cheap laugh out of that.
Yeah, well, and that was there were a lot of good cheap laughs in that sequence, right? The Hulk using the stairs thing was I probably laughed the hardest at that. I
But then
enjoyed
him
that.
opening the door and that making them drop the Tesseract because he hit Tony with it. That
It's
felt
yeah,
that was like Three Stooges level comedy
it's
at that
exactly
point for me.
exactly what I was gonna say. I 100% agreed. It's like yes, our intricate plan uh, is ruined by like silly physical comedy with the Hulk. Great. But and the other part too is, and I didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me to have the Hulk go to Bleecker Street and meet with the Ancient One. Like, so this is the way I would have done it. I would have had Tony Stark go to Bleecker Street and meet with the Ancient One because that scene would have held a lot more edginess. Because one, like Tony's an asshole, and we know that being an asshole interacting with the Ancient One just doesn't work well. A la Doctor Strange. So that would have been a much more testy interaction. And then he was also actually there and had all that resentment
Doctor Strange.
for Doctor Strange just giving away the stone, and like that could have been this big like kind of cathartic moment where she kind of foreshadows what's to come, where it's like, well, he realized you were integral to this plan, you had to be kept alive. If he did it for a reason. Like, obviously you could make it a little bit less on the nose than that, but that would really set up and I think possibly accomplish some of what happened in that 1970s part without it, and it would have been a much more entertaining interaction. And then you can have you come up with a much better plan, and you leave Professor Hulk and old school Angry Hulk, Smash Hulk, the possibility of having an interaction with which could have been just absolute bananas. You have the cap on cap. You could have done a lot more with that whole section. You could have made it more action packed. You could have had a better plan, and you could have fit a lot of that same character development into
Yeah,
into
it
that
would have
one
been nice if
section.
we did get almost all the original six versus them old selves at different points of time travel. Like the fact that there was no Thor on Thor interaction was kind of weird. Like he didn't interact with a single person besides his mom. And I get that they needed him to talk to his mom, kind of get the soul cleansing, mom talk that everybody's gotten at some point in life, like, hey, it wasn't it a bit of it was your fault, but you can change it, you can make it from the better from here. But it was kind of weird how that was just the limit of his interaction in all of Asgard for his time travel back.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the other part too is like there was such a great opportunity for him to interact with Loki, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
Oh, when he snuck past him.
yeah, but it's
It
like
would, it would have been great because Loki could have seen him. It could have even been just a smile and then, the little finger to your mouth shh moment from Loki. Even that would have been even better.
I mean, but like Loki is one of the most beloved characters in the MCU, and they just barely. I mean, he was in two of the time heist sequences, and they just basically didn't use him. I mean, he was a background actor basically.
Well, they did leave the possibility that he got to escape his death because he did take the Tesseract and disappear, and then that was what caused them having to jump back to the 70s. So I guess that was like their little wink, wink at the fans, like, "Hey guys, Loki might still be alive."
Oh, it's not. It's not that he might still like he's getting a spin-off show, right?
Yeah, but the spinoff show, I read the description of it. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be weird. It like Tom Hiddleston will narrate it, but he won't act in it, I believe, from what I saw. And the show is like how Loki, the god of mischief, influenced history. So it'll be what I think based off of that, it'll be kind of like, say we go back to World War II or something, and you see like Loki like sneaking plans from one table to another. So like Hitler finds plans or some shit. Or something like that. Because it was a really weird synopsis when I read it, and it wasn't like the who was Falcon and Winter Soldier, they get a show. Like that feels like it's gonna connect pretty well to the MCU, but the Loki one didn't feel like it was at all.
Okay. So basically, okay. So just in terms of pacing of the movie as a whole, I think if you can make the first 30 minutes just slightly less emo, and then because for me it was real jarring when they go, it's like emo 30 minutes into we're just gonna chop off Thanos' head. I'm like, what? Okay, that was seemed very sudden. And
Like, oh, we found his plant. He's dead 90 seconds later.
yeah, and then you go from that into this whole like time heist sequence, which just like you said, it was kind of like choppy and because it was really uneven. It's like you have Thor talking to his mom, and then you've got this kind of weird, physical comedy New York sequence. Like, I mean, I thought even and I understand they have to move through the movie because it was 3 hours long, but like even when they're uh, at the Temple of the Power Stone or whatever, like the whole interaction with Quill was just like, all right, we're just gonna conk him in the head and that's it. I mean, I thought there was so much more they could have gotten out of those, and if they were able to just really keep a good pace and really build momentum through the time heist into that final hour, I mean, I think that would have improved the movie dramatically.
The one segment of the time heist I did actually like and enjoy pretty well was the Natasha and Clint over at what's it called, Vormir. Their little spy battle between the two
Yeah,
for who's going to sacrifice themselves because they both feel like it. That one felt like it was the best done out of it. Like I thoroughly enjoyed that part. I'm
100.
glad Clint didn't die, but that was the out of all the like if we're going to scene was the best. That one was clearly.
Agreed for sure, right? Because you didn't know what was going to happen. There was like real stakes, and there was action. Like it kind of hit all the marks, and the other ones just not so much.
They just kind of fell a little flat. Like they could have. There was nothing more they could have done for the Vormir for the Soul Stone, but there was so much left on the table. It felt like for all the other ones.
Yeah, agreed. But so it's that I think the biggest failing of that movie was not that I mean I still enjoyed watching the whole time heist sequence, but yeah, they could have done a lot more with it, and that would have made the ending even better.
Yeah, yeah. Like if I was gonna rank the movie, I gave it. This will piss so many people off. I gave it like a like I'm a diehard MCU fan, not the comics as much, guys. I will not say I'm a
Wait,
huge
sorry,
comic fan.
I couldn't. You just cut out for a second. What did you give it?
I gave it a B minus for me personally. Like as a movie as a whole, if I was just being, I think it's objective. A minus seems fair, but for me personally, it felt like a B minus. Like I just felt like there was a lot of things not addressed or not handled perfectly. Like I went in there with a lot higher hopes than I guess what they gave us, but they did have a lot to cover in the 3 hours, so maybe I just went there with a little too high hopes.
Yeah,
And they did my boy Thor dirty, and Thor's my favorite MCU.
I I see that part that, like I said, it didn't bother me as much because you think about everybody who's been through a lot. Like Thor has just gotten emotionally like fucked for the
Oh,
last.
he's been dick kicked for the last three movies he's appeared in.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, physically he's incredibly powerful, and he is lightning slash cheese whiz. Actually, that was of all the Thor insults, I felt like that was the worst one. It just seems so uncharacteristic coming from Don Cheadle. If you
I
remember that.
honestly forgot about that because I kept seeing the Avengers spoilers without context, and I saw the cheese whiz as someone's picture like three times, and I could not for the life of me remember who it was from.
Yeah, well, it was so like Rocket making Thor fat jokes. You're like, okay, it's Rocket, like that. He just rips on everybody. That's
Yeah,
fine.
he's already done the fat jokes to Quill. You're one sandwich away from overweight or something like, oh, you need to get a Bowflex.
So like that makes sense. Also pairing him up with Thor so he can just make those jokes. But
They did have the good connection in Infinity War too when they were in the little pod talking about everybody who they had each lost before the snap.
yeah,
And so I think that was just a continuation of that. Like Rocket's the one guy who can, slap some sense into Thor.
but yeah, having like War Machine is kind of like just a good wholesome hero type. He's a little bit snarky, but like it's like what's coursing through my veins, cheese whiz. It's like, dude, come on, like that's just a cheap shot, man. Like this isn't the time for that either.
Oh, was that when they were trying to
Yeah,
decide who was going to use the gauntlet?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. Now I'm kind of remembering it.
this is like serious stuff, buddy. We're talking about bringing back half the population of the universe, and you're making fat jokes when Thor is
And
prepared
while
to
we're doing
risk his
this, there's
life.
a good chance whoever puts this on is going to die.
Yeah, you dick. You want your last words to Thor being you making fun of his weight gain? For shame.
You can't do that in 2019, people.
Yeah,
Fat shame.
yeah. And if Thor made one cripple joke, you'd tear up like a little girl. War Machine.
I was really hoping that they were. I didn't know when I wanted it to happen. Maybe at the final battle. You know how Thor does the lightning thing and he's fully dressed now, battle armor and whatnot.
Hmm.
I was kind of hoping when he did that, maybe like the gut would go away, like some magic, Asgardian magic or something. But I will say, like, I didn't like him as Fat Thor when he was dressed up like the dude from what was it? The dude who died from
The Big
what's the movie
Lebowski.
called? Yeah, the Big Lebowski. I didn't like when he was dressed up like that. Gut hanging out the shirt, gloves, weird sweater. Although I was jealous of one of those sweaters. It did look pretty comfy. I'll tell you what though, overweight Thor in the battle armor. That was a good aesthetic. I did enjoy that part. That looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of his fat buddy in the whatever they're called, his four friends.
Wait, what?
In the Thor movies, he has the four friends. One of them,
Yes.
Zachary Levi, the
Yeah,
Asian
yeah.
dude, the fat dude, the lady, Sif.
Yeah.
When he was fat wearing his battle armor, he kind of reminded me of the redhead fat dude who had the battle axe out of his four buddies.
Was that Fandral or yeah? I don't know
Something like that.
one of those
They're
guys.
such background characters. Their highlight is getting killed by Hela.
Um,
Or showing up and knocking on the door in Thor 1 and
but
freaking out Jane Foster.
so basically though, as far as the Fat Thor thing goes, I was okay with it because they needed a way to really quickly mark all the emotional trauma that Thor has gone through. And like they just like the movie was over long already. I mean, if they'd cut out that 1970s sequence in the time heist, it'd be a little bit shorter, but like they just couldn't give as much attention to Thor's character development, to do it purely through, emotional and kind of scenes like that. So I was like, all right, it's kind of a shortcut, but to me it works, and you get some comedy out of it. You let Rocket make some fat jokes.
I'll tell you what I was kind of expecting. They were already in, the rocky cliffside area for the new Asgard. I was expecting, Thor's going to be in a cave. Everything around him is going to be destroyed. It's going to kind of be like Loki after his mom died when he was in the prison cell, and he was hiding the reality that he'd smashed everything around him. I was expecting something like that to translate how he's feeling. I wasn't expecting the God of Thunder to be in worse shape than I am physically, playing Fortnite with a giant rock and a crab with scissors for hands, just getting drunk. The getting drunk all day part, that was expected. The fucking Fortnite and then getting on the headphones to insult a little 11-year-old, like that was just too much for me.
Well, and I know the second part. I would be shocked if this was like specifically what Chris Hemsworth had advocated for, but he was like real specific with the directors. He's like, I do not want to go back to the Thor from previous movies. Like, take what we did in Ragnarok and build off of that. I mean, he's super proud of Ragnarok, as he should be. and he just didn't want to backstep into like an older version of Thor. So it was like take what happened there and move forward with it. And I think that's what they were trying to do in like a sort of quick way that wouldn't make the movie 7.5 hours long. And so I'm like, all right, I'm okay with it. I understand your frustration with the partial desecration of your favorite character, but I'm like, you know what? Pounds can be shed. Thor can return to his previous glory as his arc continues.
And Ass Guardians of the Galaxy, apparently. That's what I'm going to call it. I like it. What I would have liked to happen, I don't know if this did happen or not. I think it didn't feel like it did really. I feel like they should have brought in the directors from the other groups. Like, well, James Gunn was still in trouble when they were recording this, I think. But like, if you brought in James Gunn to help with the Guardians of the Galaxy scenes, you bring in I don't know how to say his name, Takai Waititi, something like that. Bring him in. Let all the directors from the little other movies at least have maybe a little bit constructive criticism. Recommend certain thing time. I feel like Waititi, however you say it, I feel like he might have taken it a little different direction. But I understand you have to give the Russo brothers or whoever it is full control. But I would have liked that. I think we might have gotten something a little different, but more on character.
Well, I mean, that seemed to work really well with the Justice League, right? They had Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon. That was just a a perfect seamless film.
Though, because I'm pretty sure what happened. I feel like I read this when it happened. Didn't Zack Snyder's daughter like commit suicide or something like a quarter of the way into filming, and then he had to leave because he just went through just about the most emotional trauma you can have. So I think what happened was he actually left, and then they just turned it over to Josh Whedon, and because you can tell if you're watching that movie. You can tell what scenes Snyder filmed and which are directed and which scenes were Josh Whedon's. Like Flash falling on Wonder Woman, his head in her tits. Like, come on, that was obviously a Josh Whedon move. Or like, you could even tell on the recuts, which like, I think it was Aquaman talking to Bruce down in the water in Norway or wherever they were. Like, you could tell the dialogue shifted pretty quick. So I think that was the problem. I think if they had worked together on the whole movie, it might have been a little better. It was a stinker. As soon as they took Eden or Schneider off, it just went to shit.
I couldn't tell you. I tried to watch Justice League. I made it. I got not all the way through. There was that very first sequence where Batman is. I don't even know what he was doing. Like he was dangling some sort of perp as bait for a drone, and like the dialogue was so bad.
Oh, for the parademons.
I don't know what the hell it was. Like I said, I did not make it past that very first scene where I'm like, nope, not doing this. I'm good.
I watched it, I want to say twice, because I'm like, it cannot be as bad as people are saying. And then I watched the first one, like, yep, it was as bad as people are saying. And then the second time, I was like, I'm gonna watch this to see if I can like notice the differences between who was directing and wrote what scene, what. And some of them it felt like they were pretty obvious. Because like I'm a huge fan of Man of Steel. Like that was a Zack Snyder movie. I love Man of Steel. For the longest time, it was my number one DC favorite movie in DC. Now it's Shazam because Shazam kind of had that tone of Guardians of the Galaxy and Ragnarok, which that's the exact tone I like for superhero movies. But I mean, like I was a fan of Zack Snyder. Like I like Batfleck, but Justice League is just an abomination of a superhero movie. It's just terrible.
Like I said, I just needed one scene, and that told me all I needed. I'm like, all right, I'm out.
Are you someone who walks out of movies if you go and you just like immediately know you just walk out the theater?
No. I'm trying to think. I can't remember what it was. I've only walked out of one movie, and I don't remember what it was. It was in college with a friend who is definitely the sort of person who would walk out of movies. So I kind of did. I initiated it in on his benefit because I was like, "Yep."
Kind of goaded him into it.
Well, wasn't that like I think I suggested that we go to it. I could tell just from his body language and probably like subtle breathing patterns that he was just not having this, and left on his own accord, he would just walk out. But to not be a dick to me, he was trying to sit through it, and I was just like, dude, like, you want to just get the hell out of here? And he's like, yep. We walked out of that, and then the only other thing I've ever walked out of was I don't remember if it was on Broadway, but it was the same friend. It's funny, Trent. There's maybe a trend with him. We went to see the play Rent, not knowing what it was.
Who just goes to Broadway just not knowing what it is? It's a play. What were you expecting?
Well, or
did you just not know the storyline?
I didn't know the storyline.
I don't know the storyline, to be fair. I have no fucking idea what it's about.
It's about
I'm uncultured swine. You got to remember that.
It's about the spunky transvestite that treats people teaches people tolerance and then dies of AIDS.
It's a good thing this is not a video episode because people would have just seen quite the reactions to me reading
I
that
mean,
out.
I mean, I'm. It was this was a what 10, no more than 10 years ago that I saw it, but it was okay. So I had this friend, from California, never been to New York. We was just trying to show him the full New York experience. So like taking him around, and it was like, okay, you're in New York, and he actually he really liked theater. He lived in Orange County, and he was like one of his like huge things. This, as a teenager, I think he started doing this when he was a senior in high school, and did it all through college. Was he managed and ran the Garden Grove Playhouse. So it's like this like little local playhouse in Colorado, but he's like booking shows, like he's running it, he's doing ticket sales. Like it was a big deal. He's even like handling renovations of it and upgrading and stuff like that. So like he was kind of in the theater world a little bit. So it's like, all right, you have to take him to a play, and my dad was working in New York at the time, so he just kind of tapped his connections and was just like, oh, this is showing, I can get you good seats to rent, and we had no idea what it was about. We're like, sure, like we'll go to rent, and we're just watching it. I'm like, oh, what is this? Like, I don't, I
If you want peak, what is this? I discovered this last night on Netflix. It's a weird show. It's only like 8 episodes, but the episodes are only 14 minutes long. And that was half the reason why I ended up watching it. It is this weird ass show called Bonding. And it is about a female dominatrix who does that kind of shit to put herself through grad school for a psych degree. And then
oh
she slept with a gay dude in high school and she makes him become her assistant. And it is the weirdest 8 episodes of television I've ever watched. Like 2 episodes in, I'm like, okay, I want to turn off. But then I noticed, like, oh, they're 14 minutes. I'm like, another hour, I can kill this entire show. I at least want to see how it plays out. And it was one of the worst written shows I've ever seen. One of the most confusing, like, I feel like someone was just trying to make that, trying to be edgy. But I feel like the level of confusion I had watching that is probably close to what y'all had watching, apparently, a transvestite teaching people. I don't think we're even supposed to say that anymore. Teach people how to be good and whatnot. But
I mean,
if you want just the weirdest hour of television on Netflix, that's it right now.
all right, fair enough. God, should I feel like perhaps, as you pointed out, I've dug a little bit of a hole. I mean, I should say that I have no problem with whatever type of clothing somebody wants to wear. That's their personal business. I do not care. I have friends from all walks of life. Don't care. I just did not care for the writing and the musical direction that particular play went. I understand that it's a well-loved play on Broadway, and
You
many
didn't have a
people.
problem with the story. You had a problem with the execution. Something
Well,
like
I
that.
think probably even
A little bit of the
you know
story.
you know what? Like, stop digging. But but moving on, and man, this is perhaps I'll just trigger a whole nother set of people. I
Let's be real. There's only gonna be like 50 people listening at this point. We're like an hour in
I
talking
I,
about Marvel.
I know.
We've lost
I,
most people by now.
I'm just waiting for the time where you just absolutely blow up. You become super famous. This podcast is like neck and neck with the Joe Rogan Experience in this alternate timeline. That
Yeah,
would
how cold is hell gonna be when it freezes over for this to happen?
this alternate timeline that neither one of us lives in, but people are digging through old podcasts to try to find dirt and
This
find
is it.
terrible, hateful biases, which I just don't think either one of us have. We've had plenty of conversations and think probably suss that out, but
I get called a racist or a bigot or something like that. I get that in my DMs like at least 3-4 times a week, and I don't even understand what they're from half the time. One of them, it was legitimately just from being a Cowboy fan. I got a DM like, oh, "I bet you're some racist, bigoted." Oddly enough, I think they called me, the F word we're not supposed to say anymore. I think they called me that when they were insulting me, saying I was racist and bigoted. Um, I was like, dude, I literally posted a Cowboy Cerrone highlight video, and that's what started this. So, I mean, if they're digging through this in our alternate timeline reality, I think we'll be able to shake it off pretty easily.
all right, fair enough. So with that being said, I'm gonna say the last thing that I just really did not like about Endgame, and it's just Brie Larson. I don't.
I was waiting to bring that up. I had that in the back of my mind, like, let's see where he goes with this. But I was going to ask how you felt about her role in Endgame.
Well, Okay, so there's two separate things. I mean, I thought the Captain Marvel role in Endgame did not make a lot of sense in general. You know, she comes in hot, guns blazing, after sort of Deus Ex Machina, just saving Tony Stark in the void of space. But it's like, all right, whatever. She's Captain Marvel. She can do that. You know, she's well, you would have won Infinity War if you had me. Basically, is what she's saying.
Yeah, she was coming in cocky.
She's about to just fly off to kill Thanos, and then after that happens, she just like fucks off for almost the entire movie, which was a little bit. I mean, I'm you know, and it's, they try to explain that where it's like, well, there's a lot of other planets where this is happening, so you might not see me for a long time, but it's like, hey, as soon as we have this time heist idea, maybe let's get in contact with the quote unquote most powerful person in the MCU, well, the hero in the MCU.
Yeah, because the snap didn't just affect Earth; it affected the entire universe.
Yeah,
And she's the one talking about, yeah, well, there's other places in this universe that don't have you guys. You think she would realize, like, oh, we're trying to fix the entire fucking universe now. I might need to tag back in and come help these guys. But it's like, no, I'm gonna get my hair cut. I'm gonna fly out there. I'm gonna take care of everybody else. I'm not gonna come in what could literally change the entire direction of the universe. But I'll come in at the very end, fly through a ship, get our girl power scene where all the female characters are standing together surrounding her, and then not contribute much after that.
well, and then she comes back because like when I initially saw it, I was like, wow, she did absolutely nothing, and I think you pointed out like, no, she did destroy the ship, but then she flies in to fight Thanos and just gets like smacked away. I'm like, what the hell? Where was if this happened now? What do you think you would have done when he had almost all the Infinity Stones? Like you don't seem to be a great strategist, and you can't take Thanos on 1-on-1 apparently, even when he doesn't have Infinity Stones. So, like, what were you gonna do, Captain Marvel? Freaking useless.
It seems like she doesn't really have a lot of combat skill, as it would seem. It seems she's basically the Lady Hulk as terms of fighting styles go. She just kind of goes in and expects overwhelming force to be what wins it for her. And then she did get the pimp hand was strong from Thanos.
So that was frustrating. I mean that sequence, I what I wish had happened, the way it played out in this movie, is she flies in, she blows up the ship, and then Bad Reputation by Joan Jett starts like slowly playing, and it builds in volume, and like she's flying at Thanos full speed. I don't give a damn about my reputation, brain. And you're like, oh my god, she's gonna kick his ass, and then Thanos just head kicks her so hard, and she just flies out of the atmosphere, and then that's
give me a good Sparta kick to the face. That'd be amazing.
Just Holly Holm head kick right to Captain Marvel, launches. I don't know why now I've somehow linked in a strange way Thanos to Holly Holm. Sorry, Holly, you're a light of goodness in this universe. My bad, but no, I because I remember way back when Ronda Rousey was angling so hard for the Captain Marvel role, and like at this point, I'm like, dude, I you know what? I wish they'd given it to her. Like, she's a bad actress. Brie Larson's certainly better, but at least Ronda Rousey can convincingly, to some extent of the population, pretend to be a badass. And I at no single point in the Captain Marvel movie, which I also sailed the seven seas straight on the Black Pearl to watch.
I'm ashamed I actually went to the movies to see that.
I never got in a hit. Like, there's never a single moment in any of the movies that ever made me think Brie Larson's a badass. Like, she cannot pull it off. I'm like, well, at least Rousey could do that.
Did you ever see on Twitter? I don't know if you use Twitter or not, but did you ever? I think I sent it to the guys in the group chat when their big highlight bragging about how in shape Brie Larson got was she was pushing a Jeep Wrangler on a flat parking lot when it was a neutral. And it's like Brie Larson went from barely being able to do a push up to being able to push a Jeep across a parking lot. I was like, guys, I don't want to break anyone's spirit here, but that's not that impressive even for a lady. Like, we can pull anyone out of the UFC. These ladies can push a dually truck across a parking lot at least.
It's like, oh, you can push something that is designed to roll. That's okay. All right, no, she's not physically imposing. She doesn't ever give off the badass vibe. She's just sort of like snarky and like she is that it's like, even I don't know if it's just she's not being given the best dialogue to work with, which I think is part of it. But like she always like gives this vibe that she thinks everything she's saying is incredibly clever. And even that, like I remember specifically one of her insults to Rocket was he said something to her and she's
About
like
the haircut or something.
oh no yeah, I can't remember what he said to her
Yeah,
because
I think when they were on the video call thing where they were all on their little individual video platform.
yeah, but she's like be quiet fur face and I'm like fur face like is that's the best you've got Brie Larson like ugh. And that's not her fault, that's the writers. But man, I did do a deep dive of who I would have cast instead of Brie Larson that was feasibly available, and I mean Ronda Rousey was not on the list, but
It's really hard too because it's like a good part of the population feel like Brie Larson wasn't really good for this role, but then you play the game. Well, who would replace her? And you're like,
oh
well,
it's easy.
fuck.
I came down to three. It was three
All right,
people.
let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Charlize Theron, who is she's a little bit older than they want, but like fuck you Hollywood and your ageism. Like she prime Charlize Theron is perfect for that role. Yeah, she's a little bit older, but like great.
They did make Kurt Russell look like 20 with just makeup.
Yeah.
I think they probably could have did something with her.
And you know what? Fuck off. Pierce Brosnan was a little bit too old to play James Bond when they cast him, and he was phenomenal. And that was Goldeneye was one of the best Bond movies ever. So cast the best person and screw the rest. Charlize Theron, number one with a bullet. Second for me would have been Emily Blunt. I know you keep saying to save her for what do you want?
Fantastic Four. She's gonna. We got to have John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, and we got to have Emily Blunt as Sue Storm.
Which she's just a good all around actress. She will do a great job if they cast her as Sue Storm. But I almost feel like that's a waste because I'm not a huge Fantastic Four fan. I haven't read a lot of their stuff, but like Sue Storm is like a more quiet, reserved. Like that's why she becomes invisible, right?
Yeah, in the MCU, she's not going to have a giant speaking role or anything. She's mostly support there for Reed, most likely.
Yeah, so that feels like such a waste to me, right? Like Emily Blunt, like can convincingly play a badass. Like she was incredible in Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise, and there's not many actresses that can pull that off the way she did. So like, why waste that on a Sue Storm? But to your point, like that would be a cute adaptation from a real couple to an on-screen couple.
Yeah, the chemistry would be there. It would be perfect for that.
And then the last one, which like I haven't seen anyone mention, but I felt like this was fairly simple to me, was Evan Rachel Wood. If you're familiar with her,
I have no idea who that is.
I had no idea who she was either until Westworld came out. So she's like one of the main characters from the HBO series. It's HBO, right? Westworld.
Yeah, I feel like I should know that. I've watched the first season and I watched a few episodes to see Jonathan Tucker in season 2. But what's her name? I want to look her up. I want to see if I recognize the face.
Evan Rachel Wood.
Okay, let's see.
So
let's see if I recognize who this is.
In Westworld, and that's the only thing I've seen her in. But one, she was like a complete actress. I mean, she went from being this very reserved, shy kind of character. She's a freaking robot. But by the end of the series, she's like a badass. Like she's leading an army. She was like legitimately intimidating. By the end of the show.
She had red hair in the movie. I was just thinking blonde hair since you were casting her that role. I didn't think about hair dye as a thing. Okay, I kind of remember that role. Yeah, she was definitely one of the highlights of the show when I was watching it for that little time.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like, and she can play a badass. She's a really good actress. I mean, I think dye her hair blonde, she fits the part just fine. I'm sure she can get strong enough to push a small car across the parking lot. So
a nice light Jeep Wrangler.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, and I'm sure. Maybe there's some contractual thing, and she might not have even been an option, but like,
I think they were just dead set on Brie Larson wanting to do it, like, because I feel like they were talking about her for the role like 8 years ago or something. Well, like they've just been set on that the entire time, like they didn't even register other options.
And see, this is the other part for me. Granted, I fully admit I'm just basing this off of a very limited amount of information and just like quick first reactions and takes from interviews and stuff. That's
what podcasts are built out of.
I just don't think I particularly like Brie Larson. I mean, I'm sure there's a wonderful inner layer of Brie Larson that I know nothing about, and she's a great person. But from those those interviews and clips, like I just don't freaking like her. Like something about her rubs me the wrong way. I don't know what it is particularly. Like,
Did you see the one with her and Chris Hemsworth where they got into it? Like he was trying to be polite, get into it, and she was just going full snark at him.
yeah, oh right, about yes, and that was the thing.
I'm not trying to be the next Tom Cruise for stunts. I'm trying to be the first Brie Larson. And then someone made a fucked up, hilarious video of like her struggling to climb the rope for Captain Marvel, and then it's playing like children's music, and then they cut to Tom Cruise jumping off buildings, breaking his ankles with like hardcore metal behind it.
Yeah, well, so for one, he was being playful as all the cast. I mean, if you've watched any press junket for any MCU movie, like they're always having a good time. Yeah, they're like playing off each other. They're razzing each other. They're making jokes. He was actually kind of being nice in a way. Like he was kind of including in her. I mean,
he was just big brothering her, kind of teasing her, but feeding her the opportunity to like.
She started that whole thing off by talking shit on him. If you recall, she was talking about. She's like, "Well, I'm just the most powerful," and he's like, "Oh, I don't know about that, right?" And then
she was dead set like, "Oh yes, I am the most powerful." It's like,
well, and she kept going. She kept going on. She was, yeah, exactly. She was like real serious, and she's like, and it's not so much about what you can't do, but it's also really is about what you can't do. It's like, all right, so you just shit on his character, you got super serious, and then when he's like giving it back to you a little bit, then you can't handle it. Like those are the type of people who generally just annoy me. And
it's like the opposite of Robert Downey Jr. Like he Tony Stark in real life. Like he keeps that same attitude. Either he's fun, playful, a little bit snarky, but he like lives the role of the character in real life. And she doesn't like take over that, MCU attitude when she does it. She's just on, it seems like she's always on the defense. Maybe that, I have a feeling, I'll say it, this will piss some people off. It'll make some people glad to hear it. But I think mostly I know she's pretty strict in like the feminist movement and stuff like that. And so I'm sure she gets a shit ton of backlash for that. And so she probably just has to stay on the defense the entire time because of that. She's just expecting she thinks everyone's out to get her. But come on, you're with Thor. Who else was there with? It was Thor and Jeremy Renner, Thor and War Machine. Like, settle down. We're here for a lighthearted, fun interview. And she just went way too far.
Well,
it's like she didn't know the game she was playing.
To make it worse, she did not do all of her own stunts, as was later revealed after that came out. Because she can't climb a rope because she's physically weak. Like, I'm sorry. God damn it.
But she can push a Jeep.
Jesus Christ.
We're gonna get. This is gonna be half the comments of the people who actually make it this far. Is it's gonna be people pissed at us for talking shit about Brie Larson? It's like we'll talk shit about someone else if you want to, but we're on MCU time.
Here's the thing with that. I think it is specifically something. It's something about Brie Larson in general. Like I think you could get another actress who's very strong in the feminist movement. Like doesn't want would even someone who's like no, I want I want Captain Marvel to be portrayed as a hero and not wear a short skirt like Wonder Woman and like got like all in the weeds like that, and who just wasn't a dick.
If she could just play ball with everybody else, if she could handle the banner.
Wow, that was a really poor choice of words. I'm talking about feminists who said it just wasn't a dick. You get what I'm saying, though, right, man?
Yeah.
But so just her. I don't think she did a particularly good job at playing Captain Marvel with what she was given to work with, and then I think she also wasn't given a great script or dialogue in the Captain Marvel movie or Endgame. So like,
yeah, the script in Captain Marvel was just a mess all around. Like they butchered our boy Nick Fury. Like if you go back and rewatch, the Winter Soldier, when he's talking about how he lost his eye. Oh, you got to keep both eyes on me or something. He pulls his eye patch off, all ominous and whatnot. Like that's one of the most badass moments in the MCU. And then you go and see Captain Marvel, and it's like, oh, one of the biggest secrets in MCU is he got scratched by an alien cat. That's how he lost his eye. Like, why did we need to butcher his character development for that, cheap comedy?
So,
because that's what it was. It was just trying to get a pop laugh out of people in the movie.
So I guess this is what I would say. I'm sure Brie Larson is a better actress than I think she is because I'm basing this off of things that I just don't think she was good in. At some point, I'll watch the movie. The Room. What was it? The Room, a Room that she got an Oscar for. But
The one that everybody uses, the she's a good actress. She won an Oscar. That's the defense. I've heard it so many times.
yeah, I'll see it at some point. Because that obviously was her best movie and the best piece of acting she's done because she won an Oscar. So it's like it seems very unfair to judge her without seeing her best work. But I feel like something about that, like she won an Oscar for the serious dramatic movie. And she's like, yeah, I'm a serious dramatic actress. I'm gonna bring that to the MCU, playing, a flying woman who shoots power beams. Like, chill out. Like, recognize that you're in a different lane. Change your
We're in
energy.
like semi light-hearted movies now.
Yeah,
There's a
it's
little bit of tongue in cheek. We're
and
here to make people feel good overall. We're not here trying to win Oscars.
there you go.
We're
And
not
then
trying to get anyone walking out of Captain Marvel thinking, you know what, she deserves the Oscar, and nobody else is even going to come close. Like nobody's ever said that about any MCU movie.
yeah, and then and hopefully she'll figure it out, and because it's definitely looking like they want to make more Captain Marvel movies, and
Well, she signed like an 8 or 9 movie deal, so she's I know in the comics and stuff, I believe she leads the Avengers in several storylines. So there is the chance she becomes the new leader figure of the Avengers.
yeah,
So yeah, hopefully she gets her shit figured out and kind of
yeah, she
you know
will, and
fits in better.
she'll do a great job, and we'll look back. We'll look back in the same way at these movies as we do at the first Thor movies, where we're like, wow, like that character kind of sucked, and those movies weren't really good. But wow, this is one of my favorite characters now, and look how great this became. And all that being said, MCU, it's not too late to recast and get Charlize Theron.
I think it probably is if we're just being honest with ourselves.
Nope, it is not. I would have zero problem with that.
We're gonna live in the world where that one's gonna be okay.
Yep, I'm fine with it.
Oh goodness, it's a nice world to live in our heads.
All right, so that's what did you like about Endgame? I mean, we've just kind of shit on it for like an hour, it seems.
I know, right? I liked I honestly I think my favorite part was the Natasha and Clint on Vormir. Like that was the serious moment that needed to be serious. It kind of had the weight to it that I was expecting. I was expecting out of the original 6, I figured 2 or 3 would probably die. I
Hmm.
thought it was most likely it was either going to be two. They weren't going to kill them both. They were going to kill one.
It's a you're
Use his
just
arm and retire when he
okay.
uses
You're
the.
back. You're just cutting
Oh,
out a lot for a minute. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I said on one of my Q&As like a month ago, and someone actually just DM'd it to me the other day because they screenshot it. I said either out of the 2 to 3 deaths, Tony's either going to lose his arm using the gauntlet and retire, or he's going to die using the gauntlet. And so if he retires, then they're going to kill Steve. But if Tony dies, they're going to retire Steve. And then I thought, realistically, after that, Hulk, Natasha, and Clint are all in the chopping block. And so the Vormir scene, that was probably my favorite part of the entire movie. What else was good? It's kind of hard because I had so many negative opinions coming out of it.
Well,
Obviously, the final battle scene was pretty good.
that was fantastic, right? I mean, I think it was a little bit diminished just because we'd already seen it. Like if we had never seen the Wakanda battle scene in Infinity War, like that would have just been mind blowing. But it's like, okay, we've already kind of seen this, and even this is a little bit bigger and a little bit crazier. It just doesn't have quite the same impact. But
Well, we
that
had seen the Wakanda scene and we had seen the Titan scene where it was just Thanos before the army was with him or anything, or he
mhm.
joined the army. So it was like they just combined the two for that. It was a great scene. The hot potato with the gauntlet was kind of silly,
I liked it
but
though. I enjoyed it.
it was good enough. I was kind of hoping they would implement. Sorry, starting to get the hiccups. I was kind of hoping they were going to implement the guys who got dusted a little bit more, but it is good they stuck with the original 6 being really 3 of the original 6 being the focus of the main battle. The Tony, Cap, and Thor against Thanos battle before every reinforcements came, that was pretty good. What else was it? Because Cap wielding Mjolnir was one of the highlights. Even the little bit of comedy where Cap catches Stormbreaker and Thor catches Mjolnir, and he's like, and Thor's like, "Oh no, you get the small one. Give me that back." That was the right amount of comedy to put in that final battle scene. Was
Yeah.
just that 3-second clip. That was good.
Well, that
It was kind of a throwback to when they did the, "Oh, notice you copied my beer. Oh, notice you copied my hair" in Infinity War.
no, that was even a throwback. If you remember in, I think it was Age of Ultron, they were having, it was like this party
Oh,
scene where they're
yeah,
just all
when they were
having a
all
party.
seeing who was worthy. Well,
Yeah,
the ultimate throwback for that, for what happened in Endgame, was Thanos was trying to push Stormbreaker into Thor's chest, and right when it was starting to sink through the armor, you just see Mjolnir start getting picked up. You don't see by who, and then it's just thrown and hits
right.
Thanos, and Thor goes, "I knew it," and it
It,
just Mjolnir flies back to Cap.
I mean, that was a
Like
great moment for
that was
sure.
probably the best moment of the entire movie.
I also thought they just did a great job with Hawkeye as a whole in the whole
Oh,
movie.
I loved it. Like borderline John Wick Hawkeye. Like obviously he had everything taken from him, a lot like Thor, and he went even darker than Thor could have imagined. Like that was the perfect plot point or plot development for him.
Yeah,
Character development. That's the
he,
word I
he
want.
he didn't yeah he didn't have that much screen time, but every time he was on screen, it was like gripping. It was
Impactful.
emotional. I mean, even that picnic scene. He had the scene with Black Widow where she dies. Like that was every bit was just pretty powerful for who's always been like a secondary character. I thought they just did a great job giving him a
I
lot
was
to
really
work with.
hoping that tone was what they were going to take with Thor. Obviously, they didn't, but because out of my top favorite characters in the MCU, it's Thor, and then it's the Jeremy Renner Hawkeye. My favorite. So I was glad to see Hawkeye finally got his character development since he had to be left out of Infinity War.
And then I think really with Tony Stark, they also did a really good job of bringing that character arc. Because if you remember, going in the first Avengers movie, he and Captain America get into it
Yeah,
where
about making the sacrifice.
right
You're not the
you're
guy to make the sacrifice.
exactly, and it's like no, he never was. And through these
Well, he tried
movies
to make
though,
it a point when he flew the nuke in through the wormhole, but even then he survived it, so it wasn't a sacrifice.
and and I because like at first I was like, man, I don't really know if he needed to do that. Maybe he could have figured out a way to get out of this. And I was like, you know what? No, they did a good point setting that up. Thanos in the beginning of the movie has that line, "I'm inevitable." He repeats it again, and I think he came to that realization. It's like, yeah, maybe we stop him today, but he's super powerful. Like we're not going to kill him. He's just going to keep trying to do this, and he'll keep coming and keep coming unless I stop him now. And this is the only way. And there's some people who are like, they're like, well, how did he steal the gems from him? Of course, like that actually made complete sense to me, right? Because if you remember, the gauntlet that Thanos had was not his original gauntlet. It was the
No, it was
start.
the Tony Stark one. So
Right.
it nanotech right back into him. It's easy.
Yeah. So that whole sequence like actually made sense, and it was to me, and I thought it was well done. And there were people in the theater legit crying when he died.
I had so many kids in my group chat say, "Oh yeah, I was crying." Like, okay, I'm not that dedicated to the MCU. I get why people were, but his death scene was actually really. That was probably, if Captain America Mjolnir's number one, Ronan or the Vormir's number two for me. Number three was his death scene. I thought they handled that pretty well. I don't really like Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts. Like, I don't know why. It's another one of those that she's just always annoyed me. But like
Oh,
her
really?
coming in
Okay.
there, like her being the one, her saying, like, okay, it's time to rest. Like that was the last thing said to him. Peter getting his little moment to go in there and hug his adopted dad. Like I thought his death was. They did everything right with that. The right blend from all the characters that they had around him. Because wasn't it Rhodey, Peter, and Pepper were the ones around him?
And Peter Parker.
Yeah, Peter. That
Wh- which when you think about it, like, I mean, he was the one that kicked this whole thing off. I mean, like they started with Iron Man, and I remember at the time how big of a deal it was that they actually went with Robert Downey Jr. Because I don't know if you remember, like he had made some big mistakes when he was younger. He
you got to
completely
remember when that first movie came out, I was like 13.
okay. So let me just
And I'm from Hicktown. We didn't have like TMZ or anything. Like I grew up knowing nothing about actors or whatsoever. I didn't learn about his like past until I was like 20.
so just a quick recap for you youngins. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. had basically been blacklisted from Hollywood. I mean, he had made some really good movies when he was younger. He was obviously a gifted actor. like the Lost Boys. I mean, that was one when I was really young that I liked, but he'd gotten to drugs, he'd gotten himself in all kinds of trouble, like, and he was essentially blacklisted from Hollywood, and for Marvel, which is, and as much as like I kind of just ragged on them for picking Brie Larson, who I think was the wrong casting choice, they've gotten the right casting choices so many times, and they were like, no man, like this is the guy, and everybody was like, are you sure about this? Like he's a loose cannon, like he's screwed his life up. You're gonna make him the foundation of this whole huge franchise you're trying to do. What are you thinking? Like that, like I remember reading an article where they were arguing that, and look how that paid off. And it was just amazing to see after a whole decade, and everything that he's done for the MCU, for that character to be paid off like that. I mean, they got that absolutely right. So that was definitely a great moment.
Oh yeah, it's the ultimate like comeback story. Another good one, nowhere near on that level of like bottom of the gully, top of the mountain, but another good one of a career they saved was Chris Evans. Before that, he was just he'd be like the bully or like the jock on teen comedy movies. And okay, now he's one of the most serious characters in the entire MCU. Everybody forgets, all these stupid ass movies he did as a kid. Like he is now known as Captain. People him real life. Like he's someone people actually look to and aspire to be. It's like that was another. It's obviously not on Robert Downey Jr.'s level, but that was another impressive one. Like it seemed like a weird choice when it happened because that's how everybody viewed him. Like, oh, he's the awkward, goofy teen comedy jock guy. But then if I honestly think if he had died in Endgame, people would have cried more than if Tony had died. Maybe an unpopular opinion. I don't know.
No, I agree with that. I mean, by the way, if you guys I think this came out in like mid 2000s. He was in a enjoyably bad movie called Cellular, which I'd recommend. Like if you're just looking to see Chris Evans and reminisce on when he was still young and full of hope, check out Cellular. It was, like I said, it was kind of a dumb movie, but at the time it's probably like, so I was in my 20s at some point when I saw it, and I enjoyed it. But yeah, here's another. Do you remember? Speaking of recasting, Chris Evans was Johnny Storm, the Human Torch.
Yeah, he was the first Human Torch
in an epically bad Fantastic Four movie.
And that apparently turned him off superhero movies, and they had to beg him to come in as Captain America because he didn't want to be signed to another role where it's like, oh, you're Captain America now. Like if people in public saying it to him, he apparently those portrayals really turned him off from what I saw, and I'm so glad they stuck with it. Who else? The Human Torch curse, Michael B. Jordan. He was Human Torch when they redid Fantastic Four, and again, one of the worst superhero movies out there. And then look what happens. They turn around. He's legit. He's in my top 3 MCU villains ever, and he has one of the best villain portrayals in all of superhero movies. It's basically if you want to restart your career, if you want to show people wrong, head to MCU at this point. They're going to give you something to work with, unless you're Brie Larson.
Or just play the Human Torch, and then
you have to go through the gully of playing the Human Torch. Oddly enough, because they're obviously going to redo Fantastic Four now that Disney owns the rights to it. People may like this, people may hate this. I think Zac Efron would be a great Human Torch if they were going for like, dude. He's entertaining now in these like rated R comedies he gets put in. Like, have you seen the Neighbors series 1 and 2?
I have not.
Oh, they're what's his name? Seth Rogen. They're Seth Rogen movies. They're like that level of comedy.
Okay.
Like he's in those. He's as a adult comedy, pushing that bound, like college comedy, like that level. If you know what I'm talking about, he's great in those roles. He's in Baywatch with The Rock. He was a comedy role in that. He'd play a great cocky, arrogant dude who gets humbled after he discovers his powers and he gets the shit kicked out of him. Like because that's what Johnny is. He's like the annoying little brother to Sue, and then you give him like one of the coolest powers you could possibly have, and then eventually gets fucked up and humbled a little bit. But like him, I don't know who they're gonna cast for The Thing. Michael Chiklis was the one in the original ones. I have no fucking clue who was the dude in the god awful remake that nobody on this planet should watch. Don't get curious. If you hear me talking about this on the podcast, don't get curious and go watch that. It's not worth it. Do not do it. I know someone said David Harbour. Is that the dude from Stranger Things, the cop?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are saying he should do it since, it's mostly going to be CGI, but then use him as the voice and attitude. That'd be interesting. I know you're not a gigantic MCU movie fan, but are there any things you want to see like going forward, like whether it be franchises, characters, solo movies, team movies, anything? Like, is there any of those that you're specifically looking forward to, hoping get made?
Interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to the continuation of Spider-Man. They've already started, but like he was always my favorite character, just out of all of comic bookdom. I love Spider-Man. So to see him finally get done right, like I know the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was well done, but I never particularly liked it. It's just something about it never felt right for
Neither
me.
did I, and people get so mad at me when I say that I don't
Well,
like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Well, and it's an objectively good movie, and it's objectively well made, and
If you were going
subjectively,
to give it a rating, you'd obviously give it a 90 something, but it just doesn't connect right.
yeah, it just. But Tom Holland, like I think, again, Marvel almost always gets it right. Like they just nailed it with him. He's a great Spider-Man, and even the fact that he's as young as he is, like it feels right. And I'm just excited to see what they
Well,
do
he's
moving
supposed to be a
forward.
high school age character. Like that's when he starts out as Spider-Man.
Hmm.
And I mean, he's 22, 23 at this point, but he still looks like he could be in high school. So, because that was one of the things that threw me off. Like even as a kid, when did that original Spider-Man movie come out? Like 2003, 2004? I saw Tobey Maguire. I'm like, that's not a high school age person. That's a grown man. And we were supposed to believe like, oh yeah, he's like 17 in high school right now. And like dumb little middle school Austin was able to figure out that doesn't seem right.
So I am looking forward to Far From Home. I mean, hopefully they do that well. And then I don't know, like I'm trying to think of the X-Men have been done to death. I mean, those were always sort of my favorites.
Let's see. I'm gonna put while you're saying this, I'm gonna pull up Phase 4 and see if they have any confirmed movies and see if any of that tickles your fancy. So X-Men are pretty good. Who else?
I don't know, and then I never really followed the Fantastic Four. They just didn't really do it for me, so I can't really speak to that. Um, I'm trying to think. Like, I I think that that was the one thing that I do know Marvel I think is doing in the future, and I was just really excited to see. They're doing a movie that almost is looks like it's going to play like a horror movie.
Who is it? I'm looking through the list of like the confirmed ones right now. I'm trying to figure out which one you're talking about. A Marvel horror movie would be interesting. So here's what I just see on this article that's confirmed so far. We have Far From Home, Spider-Man. They've got the Black Widow prequel movie, which is going to be kind of weird knowing she's dead in the MCU now. They've got, oops, clicked on the picture. They've got something called the Eternals, a super-powered offshoot of early man with functional immortality. Like the Asgardians, they have a heavy hand in shaping Earth's mythology. I have no idea about that. We get a Doctor Strange sequel, a Black Panther sequel, something called Shang-Chi, which appears to be Asian-led superhero movie, Kung Fu craze, 1970s, and then Guardians of the Galaxy 3 sometime in 2021, and then the Disney Plus shows. So, I mean, out of that list, Black Panther or Strange are going to be what I'm the most interested in. But all the what do you call them? The Fox properties that got bought. There's so much potential with all those to just bolster the universe. Because while it's cool they got the superheroes bought from that, I think it's more important that the villains they bought. Because now they're going to own the rights to Doctor Doom, all the
Mm.
X-Men villains like Magneto. Who else was there? Galactus. But I think the angle they're going to take, the scrolls and I'm saying so many people are going to be so pissed. The scrolls and Captain Marvel, the secret invasion when it gets announced that they've actually been on Earth for decades, taking over roles of superheroes, politicians, everything in that,
Hmm.
and so they find out like half the heroes are actually bad guys.
Right.
I know the Russo brothers say they don't want to come back to directing Avengers movies until they can do the Secret War angle. So like if that's obviously the thing I look forward to the most if they're going to do it, but I feel like we haven't got confirmation because they had the scrolls like a comedy point in Captain Marvel, which was another weird thing about it.
So I guess the other thing I'm kind of thinking about is like I had never heard of Guardians of the Galaxy prior to the movie coming out. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that was a Marvel property. There was zero attachment to that leading up to it, and it's my number one favorite MCU movie, like I said earlier. So it's almost like, man, like what are they going to do next? There's just this kind of sense of excitement because there's this feeling like anything that they touch has the potential to turn to gold, and there's such a huge category. Like I think they even hinted at doing a Submariner movie, if you remember.
Namor, yeah, I think they've been looking for an actor for that.
Well, it seemed I thought there was a slight hint at a Submariner movie in Endgame. Because remember, like they had that sort of like work council meeting in the beginning where they were just checking in, and there was that whole bit of dialogue about, oh, there's this underwater earthquake. What do we do about it? And it's like we don't do anything. It's an underwater earthquake. I think that was actually a hint, a little subtle nod towards
Little
Submariner.
Easter egg,
Yeah,
they like to call them. That could be interesting. Because yeah, it's like you're saying, like most of the MCU heroes, I didn't know about growing up as a kid because there weren't any Marvel cartoons or anything, and I didn't read comics. Like I would have never thought Black Panther and Doctor Strange would be in my top 5 favorite characters to watch. Like if you told me there's some magic doctor, I've been like, with that idea while they were on drugs. But now it's one of the most entertaining characters in the universe.
yeah, for sure. I mean, so that's the great part is that they have so much to work with, and they're also not afraid to sort of reinvent what they've done a little bit and update it. So there's just a lot of possibilities. Like I'm just scrolling through this list of characters, that I just pulled up from GameSpot, and I'm like, I don't know who half these people are, and it's Marvel. Like they all have interesting backstories and the potential to be made into franchises. I'm sure.
Ooh, that just reminded me of something about Endgame. How did you feel about Stan Lee's final cameo?
Eh.
I know it was one of the most forgettable, just unimagined cameos I think we've ever got.
To me, his final cameo is going to be in Into the Spider-Verse. That was awesome.
Into the Spider. Oh yeah, when he's selling the costumes.
Yeah, that was great.
That was pretty good. You know he had a cameo in the cartoon movie for Teen Titans.
I did not.
Yeah, apparently they have some new bastard, Teen Titans. It's like a goofy kid comedy, and they even got a movie. And Stanley does a cameo, and the entire thing is him joking about doing a cameo in a movie. Like, oh, how funny is that? I'm doing a cameo in the background, and then like a production assistant on the movie lot goes and tells him like, Stan, this is a DC movie. This isn't Marvel. He's like, this isn't Marvel, and he just like runs off the screen. It's like I don't even understand how DC was willing to let that happen.
It's Stanley at this point. At that point in his
It's
life,
kind of them having to admit, like, yeah, you guys are better. We'll take it if we can get it.
But hopefully DC gets their act together. I think they have figured out that they can't handle doing a entire connective universe. And okay, and that's that's what's gonna for me bring it full circle with Endgame, just to kind of wrap that up and put a pin in it. I'd give it probably a B plus, maybe slightly higher than you did. Like obviously there's some things I thought they could do better, but when you take into account how much planning, how many different plot points and storylines and arcs and everything that movie had to wrap up, and how each little part was set up, from years and years ahead. Like I just look at it as this incredible achievement. Like nothing like that has even been approached in the history of movies before. Like what they
And it's
accomplished
going
with
to
that
take
movie.
so long until someone can even touch something close to that.
Who's gonna even like? I don't just don't think it's possible. Like who else is going to?
I know this is a weird one. I think it's Warner Brothers. Someone, all these monster movies that have been coming out, like the Kong Skull Island, the new Godzilla that's coming out, or the new version of Godzilla. I know they're trying to do it's like the Warner Brothers or Fox or someone. They're doing a horror universe where they're all connected, and so like that seems like the newest attempt to do kind of a cinematic universe. DC fell flat on their ass trying to do it. Their best one is Shazam, which is just a hardcore comedy action movie at this point. But yeah, no other franchise is going to be able to really do it. Because you have to think about it. You're taking mostly stuff, just imaginary stuff, building these universes. And if you can't figure out how to get it off the paper onto the screen just right, it's going to fail every time. You're not going to be able to establish your building blocks. Like Kong Skull Island, I saw that. That was pretty good. The newish Godzilla, the like 2014, 2015 one, that was decent. But I don't know how many people are going to be wanting to go out and see just more Kong versus Godzilla multiple times. It's not like the MCU where you have a shitload of stories you can tell. Like you only have like 5 or 6 for a universe like that.
Yeah. I think this might be a one time thing, and the fact that they had there's no blueprint to work off of. There's no other example, or like, oh, look how this other franchise did it, and they just, I don't want to say nailed it because you know what, like we have talked about, maybe there was a little bit of a rocky start in the beginning. I mean, there's some of the worst movies were some of the earliest, but by and large, they've just continued to build, and they did such an incredible job. And yeah, this was a more than adequate conclusion of what was a tremendous first phase. So I, I was happy with Endgame.
How pissed do you think when they see the podcast is over 2 hours long and then they realize, oh, an hour and a half of that was all Marvel talk. They barely talked about MMA whatsoever.
We talked about MMA, Jack Manson.
We had a solid 20 to 30 minutes.
I don't know. Like, this is me personally. If I was listening to the podcast, I'd much rather listen to that part.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to hear it from everybody else. It's just funny. Everybody always complains about, oh, we want you to do interviews. Like, I guess this is what, my fifth one. So I've been doing this for a month basically. And the first, when I finally meet their requirements of having a guest on, they talked about Marvel movies for legitimately an hour and a half.
Dang. All right.
And my normal time length is 50 minutes, and we're at 2 hours and 5 minutes now. And we didn't even do any of the 10 questions.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to questions? Because I don't think we're ready to head into Rogan territory. We're not. It's like when astronauts go into space and they haven't been prepped and their bodies start to fall apart. Like we're not prepared for that
winging
yet.
It.
We better.
We talked about Brie Larson for 20 minutes. I think we can move on to the question thing. We're Rogan territory. We're already close. It wasn't intentional though.
Yeah, we just got deep into the weeds with Endgame.
And normally, people, what I do for these 10 questions, I do the 5 MMA related ones. I do the 5 goofy or personal ones, and usually I pick them out before I start the podcast and write them down. But I only had like 20 before the podcast started, so I just left it open. So this Q&A, me and Aaron are both going to answer them. I'm going to just scroll through. If I don't get exactly 5 for each one, sorry, I'm just scrolling through and picking questions that look interesting. So, of course, there's MCU questions in there. I'm already saying. This one, between you and me being smartasses, should be pretty interesting. This question, I'm not going to say who it comes from. I don't want to put this person on blast. Do you think Bellator is corrupt/shady with their decisions? Because as boring people, the company doesn't choose who makes the decisions. It's 2019 watching MMA. You should kind of know how it works by now. The athletic commissions are the one picking out the judges. The UFC can kind of like say, hey, we'd like this judge, if you guys want to hire them, if they're available, but they're not they don't have the control over the judges. They can't, slide over and say, hey, you got to let this dude win. And honestly, I watched the Rory and Fitch fight. I don't see how you could say, like, I thought Rory won 3-2. Takedowns are great, but if you don't do anything with them, they shouldn't be scored that highly. Granted, he's holding him down, keeping Rory from getting back up, but as a whole, each round, Rory did the more damage. And if you get a takedown and you just hold him down, you kind of pitter-patter him, you can say it's octagon control or whatever, cage control, since it's not the UFC, but it shouldn't just win you the fight. I don't think. It's kind of weird. But Bellator, they don't have any control of what decisions happen from the judges. That's just you wanting to put your Eddie Bravo hat on. What do you think? What's your answer for that? I feel like you can have something more intelligent, even more smart-assy.
Well, I mean, again, like I don't follow Bellator nearly as much as the UFC, but it's like I feel like if they were gonna do work fights, fixed fights, like they wouldn't have Ryan Bader as the face of their company, right?
Champ.
Like he's the guy right now. Like Ryan Bader, seems like a great guy. He's improved dramatically as a martial artist. I mean, but he's got the personality of toast, and like not like some exciting like multi-grain toast,
avocado toast,
like just like white bread in a toaster oven toast. Like that's what he's bringing to the table. That's fine. That's why he went to Bellator, because I think he was sick of trying to.
Well, he was a free agent. His contract ran out. He was like the number 4 ranked light heavyweight in the UFC, and Bellator offered him just a fantastic contract, and he has connections with big name sponsors. So for him, he literally said, I went there. I'm going to get treated better. I'm going to get sponsors available. I'm going to make a lot more money. So I got to feed my family. I'm going to go where I can make the most money and be treated with respect.
Yeah, I don't know. I was bagging on Ryan Bader. My whole point is, like, it just seems like if they're gonna fix fights, there would be much better ways to do it than the way things have played out. Like if and maybe you're just asking strictly about the judging. I don't know, man. Probably not. I think
This
judges.
isn't Japan.
I think basically judges just don't know what they're looking at. You get people who are boxing judges and have no concept of what MMA is. They don't understand what a leg lock, is. They don't understand the sort of impact and significance of a takedown. They don't understand what they're looking at, and you get a lot of weird, funky decisions because of that.
Realistically, I'd say half the judges probably think leg kicks are for bitches, if I had to guess. If they're just coming over from the boxing world and they have that boxing mentality. Like, those are the people deciding people's careers. Like, it's not some great conspiracy that they're fixing fights. It's most likely incompetence in the judges.
I mean, hell, if you've never been guillotined, like it doesn't like people are like, oh yeah, it's a choke, it's not that bad. If you get someone who's doing that and experience, and they put the right amount of torque, like your neck is gonna get fucked up. Your windpipe is gonna get crushed a little bit. Like, I mean, I've come back from jiu-jitsu practice where I got lazy and let someone get a good choke in, and like my voice is all fucked up because my windpipe got crushed, and I didn't want to tap because that like you don't have to tap to some of those chokes. But dude, that is painful. Like I'd much rather just get punched in the head once than have my windpipe fucked up. And yeah, without having that experience, you're like, oh, that doesn't hurt. Look, he's just like hugging him around the neck.
Yeah, I get asked this a few times a month on my Q&As is like, oh, what could you do to fix the judging? And when Herb Dean was on Joe Rogan's podcast, he talked about, because he trains people to be referees and I think judges sometimes. And he says he will not pass someone in his course if they cannot physically demonstrate and complete some just basic MMA moves so that they know what it's like. He just straight up will not pass you to get certified. And I think that needs to be more commonplace. I think we need to have, judges who at least, even if it's just a 4-day, 3-day course where you take a bunch of judges down to AKA or Jackson or something. Okay, hey, you're going to get leg kicked. Hey, we're going to give you a 30% guillotine just so you know what it feels like. We're going to show you how hard it is to get up from a takedown, putting in minimal effort just because they're just regular civilians. I think that would just in itself would show us a dramatic rise in, if they just had that little bit of a course.
Okay.
Oh, let's move on to the next question. I don't even know if these are MMA. Some of these are MMA, some of these are funny. Who do you think are some of the most legit gangsters of MMA? I assume they mean like badasses. Number one, if this isn't your number one, I question you severely, maybe even on the borderline of judgmental. Sakuraba. That Sakuraba is a tiny, he's not Demetrius Johnson level tiny, but he is a tiny little man. And he was fighting the juice to the tits monster heavyweights of Pride. Like Sakuraba, Rory's a gangster for moving up to 185 and fighting fucking Gegard. Rory McDonald's always down. Who else? Three's good enough. Who are some that you feel like fall in that category?
Yeah. Well, so I feel like they're talking about people who are like just badasses. When he said gangsters, though, I'm like, well, I think like Dana White. I'm pretty sure he has extorted people and definitely racketeered a little bit.
He's definitely broken the law.
For sure, some tax evasion. Like they're like he's like entered and dipped his toe into mob boss territory on multiple occasions. I don't feel like that was what they meant. Just in terms of people who are badasses and I mean I feel like this is kind of well covered. I mean there's those fighters that have the I'll fight anyone anywhere mentality and just come and give it. So I'd say Cerrone and Masvidal.
Oh yeah, they're always game. Anyone who's willing to move up a weight class, that immediately starts getting you in the discussion. Moving down's a lot easier in terms of, like fear or whatever. You're going to have the size advantage. But if you move up knowing you're going to be smaller, that definitely does put you in the gangster category. What else do we have? Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to save that one until the very last question. Do you think it's time for Jacare to retire given his little skid that he's on?
Yep.
I don't know if it's time for him to retire. I think it might be an issue of camp because I don't remember where he trained before, but when he was Monster Jacare, there was obviously a difference. And then I know recently, like last 2 or 3 fights, he switched over to a very small gym in Orlando with, I think, Mike Perry and maybe Ben Saunders are the 2 biggest names there.
Yeah,
I think maybe he may just not have the high quality, like you said, or it just might be Jacare. He is a little older. Maybe he doesn't have the Brazilian youth guys have.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had a long career.
Jacare's 40, man. Like, or about to turn 40.
Let's see.
I mean, I'm looking at so he's 39 years old, born in December. Like, so here's the thing, and could he get some more good fights out of him? Sure. Is he going to be able to get enough good fights out of him to eventually get a title shot? That's kind of iffy, right? Like he just lost to Jack Hermanson. I think from what we saw in the Whitaker fight, I mean, like Adesanya would be a problem for him. I mean, he just lost to Gastelum. Like getting back to a title shot after this Hermanson loss is going to be incredibly difficult. He's kind of already stated like that's what he wants, or he just wants to retire. I mean, I think he literally said, if I don't get a title shot after this fight, I'm retiring. And he might have said, if I lose, I'm going to retire. So it's like, dude, if those thoughts are in your head, you're pushing 40 and you have a spotty record in your last, few years of fighting, like, dude, just get out. Like he had a fantastic career. It never quite clicked for him in the UFC, largely thanks to Yoel Romero being a freaking monster. But, no shame. Like walk away. Like don't be one of those guys who sticks around for longer than he needs to. Because I'm sure with his jiu-jitsu background, there's plenty of competition he could still do. That's not going to take as much of a toll on the twilight of his life. He can start schools. He could spend time with his family. But if he's title shot or bust, like he said he is, like odds of that are just not worth it to keep going. Jacare, get out.
And this is just a reality fans need to remember. Mathematically, statistically, not everybody can be a champion. You can be a fantastic fighter and just not have the right breaks or just lose the one fight that derails you. You can still be a fantastic fighter.
Well, and that's it. Like
26-7-1 no contest. Like he's done everything he's due besides win the belt. Just because he can't win the belt doesn't mean he hasn't had a fantastic career. And if he doesn't meet that, you should still give him all the respect in the world for the career he's had.
For sure. But he's also let's see, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 wins and 1, 2, 3, 4 losses. So he's 4-4 in his last 8 fights. That's not it's not like this Hermanson loss was some aberration and he's just going to immediately go on this huge streak and get a title shot. So like,
I've had this argument on my Q&As with people before because they didn't like my answer. Because people are saying, he's getting screwed out of a title shot. I'm sorry. At no point in Jacare's UFC career do I see anything that warrants an immediately title shot. His first fight was Chris Camozzi. He went on a 1, 2, 3, 4 fight winning streak. 2 of those 5 were against Chris Camozzi. 1 was against Yushin Okami, Francis Carmont, and Gegard Mousasi. He lost to Yoel after that. He fought an old Vitor. He fought Tim Bosch. Then he lost to Whitaker. He beat Brunson. Then he lost to Gastelum. He beat Weidman. Then he lost to Hermanson. I'm sorry. He's a tremendous fighter. But I'm sure there was times where you could argue he should get a title shot. But at this point in his career, he just hasn't given us the record that you would want for a title shot. You couldn't give him a title shot off of 1 win against Chris Weidman in 2018.
Well, and
like, I think fans get blinded because they like him so much.
Yeah, well, and I like him too. And the reality is, though, like I can visibly see him slowing down. I mean, over the last couple of years. And I know, like, I think he said he was sick when he fought Gastelum, but like it looks like his gas tank maybe isn't as diminished as it was in that Gastelum fight. But he can't, he's not as athletic and explosive as he was. His gas tank is a little less. I mean, it's like he's getting older. That's inevitable, right?
I do remember he did have a bit of the gas tank issue when he fought Weidman. Like when it was getting to the third rounds, we thought, okay, Weidman's about to cruise it out for the victory, and then he just had that, what was it, a right hook? He just had that bomb that dropped Weidman, and like that saved him. But it looked like he was on his way to gassing out and getting rode out for the last round.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see it way too often. And it's just that, Rogan with Job conversation, like, hey, could you go on and win some fights? Yes. Could you still have, another few good years in you? Yes. If your only goal is to get to the title, like, let's just be realistic. And there's a lot of guys ahead of Jacare who are really young and have beaten him pretty convincingly. and it just doesn't look like that's a that's worth
It's not in the cards
pursuing.
for him. It
Yeah,
seems.
for sure.
Okay. Serious MMA answer. So let's go to one of the dumbass questions. That's the way it works here. Oh, you'll love this one. Is sex overrated? Why the fuck you asking me? I don't know.
I mean,
We have really bottom of the barrel questions here. We did not get good submissions
wow.
today.
I mean, I don't even know how to approach it. So it's like one, yeah. I mean, we kind of need it for the species to stay around, right, bud? So if that just we stopped having sex, like
That's pretty high importance.
we'd cease to be. We wouldn't even need the Thanos snap. Like we would just, in the span of 60, 70 years, we would just suddenly be dead as an entire species. So like from that standpoint, by itself, is it overrated? No, man. That's a real dumb question. I think he's asking from a purely like
Pleasure.
pleasure and enjoyability standpoint. Is it overrated? Um, wow. Okay, so I'm gonna. Yeah, I think a little.
You're gonna have an ex listening to this somehow, and she's gonna text you pissed the fuck off.
Well, and okay, so I think what whoever maybe I'm giving this person more credit
I can
than
tell you
they
right now what this
deserve.
person's trying to do. They're just trying to make me squirm, thinking this question would make us uncomfortable or something, and they weren't looking for some valid, deep thought answer.
Yo,
I know
let's
my followers.
let's let's take this serious for a second, guys. Let's forget about the childish things we've been talking about and get real for a second. Sex in our culture has been built up so much, gets thrown at us through advertising and movies, and it's been built up to be the most amazing thing in the world. And there's these teen movies and media, and it's all about sex, sex, sex. And like, is it real fun? Sure. Is it fun enough to keep our species going? Absolutely. But I don't know. For me personally, I think like the intimacy and the mental aspect of it is just as enjoyable and actually like more enjoyable for me than the physical part of it. So I think it's almost a testament to how ridiculous our culture is and marketing and television and movies that something as fantastic and enjoyable and pleasurable as sex is overrated and that we've made somehow I don't even know how it's possible, but we've managed to build it up to be more than it actually is. When at its core, it is great and incredibly enjoyable, but we have this like ridiculous fixation on it in this country.
Man, if we were doing a video podcast right now, I'd insert a clip of the and now you know little rainbow thing. I feel smarter after listening to that. I'm not gonna lie. We'll move back onto an MMA question. I actually know the answer to this one, shockingly, without it, just barely looking at it. Which fighters do you think would benefit the most from a gym change? And then which gym would you want the fighter to go to? And for me, it's easy. Cody Garbrandt. Uh, even, come on, Justin Buchholz. When Cody was with him, it seemed like he was doing great. He's always been a little wild. He's always been he'll throw caution to the wind. But it seemed like he was a little, maybe like 5% smarter when Buchholz was around there. And just as a whole, Team Alpha Male seems to just have chaos in the coaching staff. It seems like there's a different, striking coach there every few weeks. And it seems like Cody is probably, I know he's a wild child growing up. I feel like he's probably one of those guys who really benefits from a strict, structured training schedule and coaching relationship. And I have a feeling at Alpha Male, he's one of the top dogs at Alpha Male right now. And I have a feeling that like he needs somewhere where there's going to be that strict, close bond you have with your coach, but there's also serious, like there's the understood of you're the coach, I'm the coach, you're the student. I think somewhere he would probably do pretty well at if he switched over. Throw him in TriStar. I think Faraz could build that coach relationship that he really needs and get him more disciplined and focused on correcting the areas. Because it seems like all three fights that he's lost in a row, I know people are going to say, oh, TJ was on EPO. But still, he kind of threw caution to the wind in all three of his losses and just started swinging. And it's cost him 3 times in a row. It's taken him from world champion to first top 5. He might even be lower than that. I don't know. I haven't checked the rankings lately. So I need to put him somewhere that's you're going to have a strict training regimen. You're going to have a coach who's going to keep you humble. And I think TriStar would be a good place for him.
I think in my mind, Cody Garbrandt should go work with Trevor Whitman, but I also think like almost every striker who's kind of a hothead should go work with Trevor Whitman. So maybe that's not the best example. I just think Trevor Whitman's like a phenomenal coach, but
You're
this,
voting for Trevor for Coach of the Year on MMA awards.
no, I would vote for Dean Thomas for 100%. Dean Thomas is the most undervalued and just does not get the credit he deserves. Like he's just the most unsung coach in MMA. He's incredible.
I feel like I want to check and see if he's even on the list for voting candidates
Yeah, no, he.
while you go on about this.
So, and here's the thing though that I think a lot of people forget about fighters and camp changes and everything like that. Purely from like a stylistic matchup and the system and everything like that, sometimes it seems simple, but fighters are also human beings, right? So like, do they vibe in the town? Are they mentally engaged? Like, do personality wise, do they get along with the coach? Like those things are often just as important or even more important. So like, this is an example of like a fighter who I think she's just kind of given up on being fully competitive, but like Claudia Gadelha had looked like an absolute monster. Runs into the two JG losses and then just hits a rough patch and starts taking L's, right? And during that L taking time, she went to Jackson Wink, and we don't have to get into any of the Jackson Wink, Cowboy versus Winklejohn stuff, but absent of any of the coaching or training partners or anything, that was never going to work out for her. Like Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Claudia Gadelha just do not mix. She was never going to be a productive fighter in that atmosphere because she needed more stimulation. She wanted someplace warmer, and so like that's one where I thought about it. I'm like, I don't understand why in the world she isn't going to work with Rafael Cordero. Like that guy specializes in taking powerful Brazilian grapplers, giving them a Muay Thai base, and then one of her biggest problems is cardio, and that would give her opportunity to go do strength and conditioning with Nick Curzon, and she would get the best possible cardio shape she could get working with Speed of Sport. So like for me, like that one was a no brainer. It's like she can continue to improve as a striker. She could work with a coach who seems to get Brazilians. She could live in California by the beach, which would be like the perfect atmosphere for her. And the hugest issue in her game, which is cardio, she could work with Speed of Sport, which I think he's the best trainer, like strength and conditioning coach in the game. So like
Now, do you want to get really mad based off of what I just saw on Instagram last night?
What's that?
She's moved up to at least finishing her camp up in New Jersey with Mark Henry instead.
Yeah, no, I
Complete
saw.
opposite way.
That's not it's not a terrible. The reason that happened is she actually she opened a gym and I don't know why she opened a gym in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. That's like in the Poconos, like out in the woods. Like it's a college town basically. So I don't know who's going to train at it's a small college town at that. I mean,
Maybe there's a secret Brazilian population up there we don't know about.
there's not. I can attest to that. I've been to Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. There is a lot of meth. And there's like people from Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York going to go on really really shitty ski runs, and then there's I think there's a university there that has like maybe 7,000 students total. But she's opened a gym, and that's in the neighborhood, so she's kind of like in that area anyway, promoting. Again, business wise, I don't understand, but Mark Henry is definitely. I mean, he's a fantastic coach, and that's definitely not the worst choice for her. I think the best choice for her is Rafael Cordero and being out in California.
Interesting. Oh goodness, there's even an MCU question that I think we would both answer pretty well. Shame after that hour and a half, almost 2 hours of MCU talk, but we need a goofy one. So, favorite original Avenger and favorite new Avenger, and their cutoff line for us is Age of Ultron before and after. So, I'm gonna let you go first on this one. Actually, I've gotten to go first on all the other ones. I can read you out what happens before Age of Ultron if you need that, or after either one. I got that pulled up. But what are your two?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, it's easy. Spider-Man is the favorite newer one. I mean, I said
Okay.
he's always been my favorite character, and I just like the treatment that Marvel has done better than any of the prior ones. Wait, hold on. Are we counting television shows?
I think we can.
Oh,
I know
then
they mean MCU, but fuck it.
Then my favorite new one, and it absolutely freaking. Oh, what was it even called? Is, is it bad that I don't remember
Your
the
favorite?
the name? Oh God, what was it? It was a television show, and I never. Hold on, let me pull this up because if you guys haven't seen this, Legion, that was what it was called. There's a
Oh,
it was so like weird and just
I
mentally
got two
driven.
episodes in and checked out.
Dude, that whole thing. I mean, like the production budget was about $57, but
That sounds right for FX.
uh, it had that like '70s golf course vibe to it. Maybe '80s. Maybe I'm being unfair, but I really enjoyed just the mental aspect of that show and like you didn't know what was going on. And I mean, that was one of those ones where I was just completely surprised by it. I had no expectations going into it, and I liked that character in the first season. I didn't see the second season, so I'm just gonna throw that out there because that's one that maybe not as many people know about. And it was just a completely different take on anything that Marvel had done before. And then my favorite older one, uh, it's a little bit harder. Because I didn't like Thor prior to Age of Ultron.
I think it can just be as a whole character, their whole entire career. They just mean like, I think basically they mean the original six and then after the original six would probably be the way they would word it.
Got it.
Because that's all we really had before Age of Ultron was just the OG original six.
So the next it would have to be Iron Man, right? I mean,
Probably for
yeah.
most people. Okay, this is just playing off because you did mention the FX series. Did you know that FX was actually working on a Donald Glover written animated Deadpool show?
Nope.
And that he was like writing the script for it. He had like cut scenes made or like little scenes cut together and whatnot made for it, and then they canceled it.
Oh,
And to spite them, he had an animator come in, I believe, and like animate like 90 seconds of one of his plots, and it was fantastic. It was thoroughly entertaining. But if that had been made, that would have been probably the best Marvel show, period. But my two are easy. Original six, Thor. I fucking love Thor. Even from the first movie, I've loved Thor. Post that, I want to say, looking at the lineup, it's got to be either Doctor Strange or Black Panther. Um, I kind of want to lean towards Stephen Strange, but I don't want to go into it more since we're already giving people over an hour and a half of MCU footage or review. What else? What else do we have? Seriously, we just did not get great questions this week. I gave them like 2 hours worth of lead time too. Oh, we already asked the question about you being afraid of my voice. I can't say that one.
oh, that was a serious question.
Oh yeah, that was a legitimate question from Hoist Garcia. Blast. Any pressure being on since AJ gets a lot of love for that panty wetter of a voice he has?
No, not really. The only thing that I felt a little bit of pressure was when I do videos. I mean, because if any of you guys have gone to my feed for the last close to a year, it's usually been very tightly edited, written videos where like I will do multiple takes. I usually do the whole video in one take, but sometimes it'll get me like, take me like 14 times trying to do it because I'm talking rapid fire. I want to enunciate every word the best I can. The pace of it is like, what's up, fight fans? This is Blastyd MMA. I'm like barreling
Trying to
through
fit it
these
all in a
things.
minute.
Right? Exactly. And it's like, so I've already sort of set this context of like, this is what I sound like. This is how I present contact. And, I've already, I usually spend, maybe an hour thinking about it and writing out that video. And then I'm going to spend, at least an hour editing it. So I'm like, I'm spending 2 hours just to get 60 seconds of audio. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to present any of my ideas nearly as well. And I might inadvertently insult a beloved Broadway play in the process. God, like, I hope I don't mess this up. Like, that was more the pressure I felt coming on a podcast where, where I'm assuming based on our technical proficiency, there's not going to be heavy editing going on.
Oh no, it's gonna be exactly what it is. They're lucky I didn't post the podcast where it was just 6 minutes of dead space and then I restarted it. Oh goodness. Okay, we're at legit 2.5 hours. We're just gonna do one more. I don't even fucking know what we're at for the question count. Um, oh, gosh, you choose one it. We can either go with an unpopular opinion you both have. It doesn't have to be about the same thing. Or I'm going to change the way I word this. How did you win the Dark Place Challenge?
Uh, well, rent was terrible. That was an unpopular opinion that I had. How did how did I win the Dark Place Challenge? That one,
Because really, let's be honest, it was just you versus me.
pretty much.
Love MMA. He wasn't in it. He was just in it to just get in a little better shape. And funny MMA, he was trying to become a cop, which I think he's pretty close to succeeding in that. So it was really just you versus me, and all we were trying to do was spite Joe Rogan.
Which we accomplished. So I mean,
Oh, successfully. Maybe I couldn't walk after the 26th for 5 days, but boy, if I didn't at least pass the number.
so the way I did it, and this was both, passing Rogan and then also staying ahead of AJ was I recognize that I am significantly older than Austin, so like I just could not recover as quick. So if and
But you do have to admit you were in exponentially more phenomenal shape.
I don't think exponentially because this was the issue. If you remember why I wanted to do it in the first place was I'd spent what 5 6 months doing this big remodel on my house and I was doing all this construction. So like I didn't work out that entire time. So I had a pretty good base. Like I mentally I kind of knew how to handle exercises. I had
Well, people don't know your background is also something you might want to give them the 30-second splash of your athletic background.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, so I've just been a pretty competitive athlete my whole life. I started wrestling when I was like 6 maybe. I mean, the farthest I got from that was I was training with what was, Renegades MMA, which was kind of like, or not MMA, Renegades Wrestling, which is sort of like a splinter of Foxcatcher, if you know what that means. The highest I got in wrestling was I wrestled a match against the Russian Olympic development team, if that gives you an idea. I was a high school All-American in lacrosse. I was a 3-time All-American in lacrosse in college. Like, after college I did jiu-jitsu, judo. So like I've just been a competitive athlete for a long time, but I've just had so many injuries with that. I mean, just pretty much every single joint level. So sometimes it's
And that was the weird thing where you and me were actually pretty close on it was the just sheer level of ridiculous injury lists. Like I wrote out yours when you sent it to me, and I was impressed. Like, you were the first person I ever met who either passed or met mine. Mine was a little more broken bones. Yours was a little more torn shit.
Yeah, I have more of the soft tissue injuries. You definitely way more concussions than I've had. I've had the one.
I'm at 13.
But yeah, so I hadn't really worked out very much at all, and then I was like, I presented it to you guys like, all right, let's do this. Like, 'cause I want to get back in shape, and right now, it can be really hard for me to get motivated to start working out because like I've been, my body's kind of broken down. Like it's gonna suck, and like when I don't have anything to compete for, mentally it's tough for me. But as soon as you introduce competition, and I'm like, all right, let's freaking go, let's do this. But it's like as soon as because we were supposed to do it in December, not January, and as soon as I started to try to work out, like I had this really bad tendonitis that I thought had gone away in this sartorius muscle, or not, sartorius tendon rather, and like it just flared up, like, and I could barely walk, and I'm like, great, I just said we should do this challenge, and I can't walk, and I was working out a little bit. I was doing a lot of yoga mostly in December just to try to make it through January when you guys agreed to reschedule it. But like I wasn't in phenomenal shape, like I've been in the past going into that, unfortunately. So to bring it back, I basically I realized one, if I'm trying to do like real intense workout, I have so much, so many injuries and soft tissue problems that like I'll break down really fast. I won't be able to get the points I want in that individual workout, and I won't be able to recover nearly as fast as you did, or even Rogan. I mean, Rogan's older than both of us, but he's got way fewer injuries than both of us. And
He's on every PD on the planet.
Yeah, he's taking freaking.
And he has access to every recovery method on the planet.
Growth hormone and testosterone replacement, like both of which make you recover way faster. So I was like, I can't go that route. And when I looked at it, I was like, I will just take 0 breaks the entire time. I won't have problems recovering because I'm just never going to try to recover. So if you remember in the challenge, like I started off going really slow and really long. Like I think because I think like the first day I just walked like 10 miles. The second day I walked 10 miles, and my feet started hurting. So then I was doing like really like relatively slow airdyne sessions where I ride for like 20 minutes and get off, and then ride for 20 minutes, and just going as slow and easy as I could, and just putting in volume. And then I kind of built up where at no point did I have any of like the really super intense monster workouts that you did, but and because like I rarely ever got, I mean, I was rarely out of the green. I never got into that yellow 80 beat.
Yeah, and I lived in it for most of mine because I remember it because every morning when I would wake up, because you're 2 hours, well, yeah, you were 2 hours behind me because I'm in Florida, you're in Colorado. I remember the first thing I would do every day in January was I would wake up and I would look and see what you did. And there was days where I was seeing that you had the strap on for like 8 or 10 hours, and I'm like, this motherfucker's cheating or some shit. Like he's just getting like 1 point when he walks up the stairs or some shit. He's keeping it on all day if his heart rate goes. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Because like what I was solely wearing it when I worked out. I would walk outside because the only thing I did for the entire competition was my elliptical. I would get on that thing, sole elliptical. I don't know the numbers. I would jack the resistance up to 20 out of 20 starting out, and then I would just variate between like 0 and 15 for the incline. And I would just get in there. I would jack my heart up to yellow, which is 80% to 89% of your max heart rate, and I would just fucking ride there for like 90 minutes at a time for most days. And then I was seeing you like slowly, like the first 14 days I was feeling cocky, and then like day 15, 16 is when you started creeping really close, and then I think the end of day 16 is where you passed me, and I'm like, ah, fuck. And so I tried like I put in like 2 or 3 good efforts to try and get the lead back, and I'd get it for like 8 hours, and then I'd wake back up and it's like, oh, the fucker had it on for like 6 hours last night. Like, I was just see because I was so competitive about it. I'm like, this motherfucker's got to be cheating or some shit. But then I just slowly realized like, oh, we're doing tortoise in the hare here. Like I'm going full sprint the entire every workout I'm doing, and then I'm having to take a break like every fifth or sixth day so I can even function. And meanwhile, you're doing like variable workouts, like you're doing hikes, you're doing aerodyne, rower or something. You're using a sauna, you're taking hot baths, cold baths, and like I've told people this before. Like I'm 6'9", 6'9" if I stand up really straight. I'd average 6'8" if I'm just walking around. I can't fit in a bathtub. I can't take a hot bath. I can't take a cold bath. I don't go to a gym. I don't have access to that. So literally the entire month, it was just me going out in my garage when it was like 40 degrees in Florida for some fucking reason. That pissed me off. And just riding the elliptical 90 minutes at a time, 90 in the morning, 90 at night. And then the last fucking day, I was just so fed. Like the 26th, I'll remember this until I die. Fucking 26th, I was so fucking fed up with working out and knowing I wasn't gonna be able to catch you. So I just said, fuck it. I want to do something I know he can't do. I want to get 1,000 points in one workout. No one in Joe Rogan's group did that. I don't think Blastyd can beat me on that. So at least I'll have that participation, medal or whatever. I may not get the trophy, but I'll have like the award for like best single workout. It was, what was it? Because I was talking to you guys the entire time. It was like I got on there at like 7:15 and I got off at 11:59. And I think my elliptical said I'd done like 16.3 miles.
The other part, I mean, you might, I don't know. You could actually tell me if you were just going to do that on your own. But I was doing my best to goad you into that because because at first you're like, I'm just gonna, I'm at this. I'm like, well, you have to pass Rogan. Like I've already passed Rogan. You're so far behind.
I actually still have, because I had a little clipboard, a dry erase little magnet, clipboard type thing. Because in my garage when we moved in this house, there was a washer and dryer here, and I stacked them out next to my elliptical. And so that was what I put my fan on top of that. I put my control, because I have a little computer monitor out there with a Chromecast in it, so I could watch stuff while I'm working out. So I had this little magnet dry erase board that I stuck on the side of that. And it's still out there. Well, I just got rid of the washer and dryer this weekend, but the clipboard's still out there. And you could see my math on that last day when I was trying to figure it out. Because I got on there and I was like 613 points or some shit away from beating Rogan. And I'm like, okay, I'll get 300 points tonight. I'll get 300 points in tomorrow. I'll be past Rogan. Yeah. And then like I was talking to you guys and I was watching My Hero Academia, and I started out like 4 episodes into season 2, and like 300 points. I'm like, okay, I still feel kind of good. Like I'm just gonna keep going until I don't feel good. And then you started, like, I started thinking like, I should beat Rogan. I think I said it to you, and then you started go to me, and I'm like, okay, I can beat Rogan. That's 600 more points. That's 300 more points. That's about an hour and a half more. Okay, it's 9 o'clock right now, and I'm like, I get to the 600, and I'm like, well, I can still walk. I was like,
Yeah.
well, it's only 400 more to 1,000.
Yeah, and that was the point. And that was the point. And I'm like, well, yeah, you have to get to 1,000 now. Like, no one has done that. I'm like, and it was true. I was being serious. I'm like, I mean, I don't think I could get to 1,000. If you get to, if you get to 1,000, you'll be the only one who did it.
Because I don't, maybe it's, I could just get in yellow and I could stay in yellow. And everyone's argument is like, oh, yeah, well, you used to be morbidly obese. So, it's easy to get your heart rate jacked up. It's still really fucking hard to keep your heart rate at 80% for over just about 5 hours. Like, most normal out of shape people aren't going to be able to do that. So I was like, okay, I just want to do this to prove a fucking point out of spite. I'm going to be pissed. I finished at 11:57, 11:58 or something is when I think I got 1,015 or 1,016 points. And I'm like, fuck it. I was like into season 3 of My Hero by then. I was I was having to take like breaks every hour to go take a leak because I was killing like almost a gallon of liquid like every 90 minutes. And so I was like taking breaks to pee. I would like walk inside, I had a loaf of bread on the counter. I'd put some butter on like 2 pieces of bread, bring it out there with me, get back on the elliptical, start going again, then eat while I'm on it. So I was still having energy to do it. I was like so determined. I'm like, I know this fucker's he's going to beat me, but he's not going to fucking beat 1,000 points in one day. There's only 5 days left. I'm going to break him on that. And I shit you not, people, I could not. I got out of bed for about 3 minutes the next day being able to walk. I had just enough juice in my legs to be able to make it to my kitchen about 30 feet away, get my lunch, and then just lay back in bed and just feel like death. And I could not walk right for like, legitimately, I think it was the 31st. It was the first day where I'm like, oh, my legs don't hurt. That's nice. All just to come in second place.
So I'm not gonna. I felt a little bit bad because the entire time I was goading you into that, I knew exactly what was gonna happen the next 3 days. I was well aware. That was the part. Like I almost started laughing because like you sent like a message like 2 days later. You're like, why are my legs still sore? It's been 2 days. yeah, that happens.
Yeah, obviously I'm no cardio machine. Like I used to be fucking 400 pounds. Now I'm down. I fluctuate. Now I'm in the high 200s. Like I'm obviously never been a cardio machine. I've never known anything. I didn't even know how many miles I was going to do when I was doing it. And when I looked down and it was over 16, I was sitting there. I was like, isn't a marathon like 26? I'm like, so, okay. I'm like a half marathon's like 30. Did I just do over a half marathon on an elliptical set on full resistance? And then the next day when I woke up, I was like, ooh, I fucked up.
So I'll tell you. Okay, I'll tell you the one place where like I did sort of hack the system a little bit. It was mentally incredibly tough, but I did kind of feel like I was cheating a little bit in a way.
Because the person who asked that question is a kid in my group chat who heard me the entire time. Like, this motherfucker's got to be cheating. And then I told him like he's like 8 hours a day. They're like, oh come on, that's against the spirit of the game. And I'm like, I don't know. He's just fucking beating me, guys.
No.
So that was the kid who asked it because he phrased the question. Ask Blastyd why he cheated in the competition, but I'm like,
no,
I was saying tongue in cheek cheating. I knew you weren't.
No, I 100%.
Way smarter than me.
I 100%. No, I was okay. So one, I was very very smart. Like I wrote out, I structured my workouts. I was very particular about. I would do agility intervals because they would work this set of muscle groups. Then I would do the aerodyne. So like I was trying to let everything sort of recover because I was never taking full days off. The days that you're talking about where it said that I was on the thing for 8 hours, that was more of a function where I knew I was going to have to do multiple workouts that day. So I just wasn't taking the thing off because I didn't want to change my clothes again.
Yeah, and I could see like you'd spike up to like blue for like 1 or 2 minutes, and then it'd go back down to like the gray 1 point zone for a little bit of time, and then you go to the gray where you get no points. I'm like, I was so pissed that you were even getting like 30 points in a day just in between the 2 workouts. Like that's how pissed I was about. I have a really bad competitive streak that I think most people realized who were involved hearing about that competition.
This is what I did and again, it was sort of a happy accident where like I just wasn't taking the thing off, but I realized if I did I would do this at night usually. If I did like a really hard cardio session where my heart rate was elevated, and then I did an Epsom salt bath, and like the bath water had to be so hot where you're like just where you're not like boiling yourself. And because I sometimes I did a couple days I did it too hot, and like the skin was just like peeling off my feet where I'm like, okay, I can't make it this hot. I would be able to keep in the gray where I was getting like a point a minute for about a half an hour just sitting in that bath.
You bastard.
And the funny part, and this was actually I'd never watched anime before that competition, and you just kept talking about My Hero Academia, so I was like, all right, screw it, I'll watch it. So like I would sit in this like just burning hot bath, like absolutely miserable. I'll see if did I ever send the here. Wait, let me see if I can send it to you right now. I can't remember if I deleted it or not. I think I deleted it. I had a photo that I took of myself sitting in that bath where like I just look absolutely miserable. Um, but just watching My Hero Academia, just hoping I'm not gonna die. I think I
Yeah,
did.
that was literally the only thing I was watching that entire month for so I was in the competition for pretty much 25 days, or yeah, 25. I think the 25th is when I said it was, and then after that I just stopped. But I cycled through that. The show's got 3 seasons, like 40 something episodes. I watched that entire show like 4 times in the month of January because that was just like I don't know the music of it or something. Like it was just good to get my heart rate up. Like I would try watching other stuff and my heart rate would just stay in like the 60 to 70% for max heart rate. So I was just stuck watching that fucking show. And then I was just pissed because I knew you're doing all the recovery. You're getting multiple methods to do of exercise. You're going out for hikes with your dog in Colorado. And I'm just sitting here fucking grinding in my garage wearing a hoodie, a long sleeve, fucking tall socks, 2 pairs of shorts, heater blowing on me, just trying to keep my blood flowing. And I
Yeah,
was so jealous. Because like when I lived in Texas, we lived in a way nicer house in Texas, and we had one of those like jacuzzi bathtubs, and like I could fit in that one. I could kind of crisscross my legs. I could get basically the water would stop at like just below my kneecap if my legs were crossed. But fucking here, I'm in like a house where the bathrooms from the 1970s. Maybe like where my pockets are on my shorts. That's about as much leg as I can keep in the water because the tub's so short compared to me. And I just fucking knew you were in there. Sun was hot, baths, cold baths, doing smart life. I was trying to represent the Mickey Mantle gene.
no, I think he represented it well. But that being said, like those hot baths were those were torture. It was just more mental torture than anything else. I mean, but most of it, no man, most of it was just freaking hard work. I mean, the last day of the competition, I went out to the mountains and I ran through. It was mountain trails like over snow. I did a half marathon, like real slowly, but I still did a half marathon. And then I came back. I took a break, and then I just did a hard 3 hour Airdyne session just to
I just
close it
want you to
out.
know that entire day I was still watching the app and I was laying in bed with ice packs on my legs, alternating with heat, and I was just saying "fuck you, fuck you, fuck you" as I kept seeing the number go up and up as I refreshed it. I was like, "You mother, just digging that fucking knife in."
I wanted to beat Rogan by 3,000 plus points. That was my.
Oh,
I was like,
you,
I'm just gonna fucking bury him.
you remember how right before the competition started, we thought, "Oh, I bet we could double Rogan."
I still, I think if I had gone into it in good shape and didn't have the tendonitis issues, I could have gotten close.
I feel like if I went and joined a gym, like there's a Crunch Fitness by me, and they have like all the hydrotherapy and all the saunas and shit. I feel like I could at least hit 15,000 if I had like adequate training and recovery methods.
It,
But
it,
like that competition ruined working out for me. Like I didn't work out for like almost a month after that because I was just so like it just ruined every thought I had about working out. It just turned me off so bad because of how stupid that was. Because like there was a lot of people after we posted results because it was just you and me who did something impressive. After we posted the results, I was getting a lot of people like, "Oh, you're doing it because you're older, or you're doing it because you're out of weight." I'm like, "That's not the game, people. It's a mental game whatsoever." Like Joe calls it the dark place because like, oh, you have to go deep dark into yourself. It's really not. The dark place, air quotes that people can't see, is it's just forcing yourself to go do something you don't want to do. You could win the competition, at a leisurely stroll if you just did it for 5 hours every day for 30 something days. The hardest part of the competition is getting up and going and starting the workout. And
yeah.
like, I don't think people realized that was actually the hardest part. And
Oh,
that's why we named it the dark place because after day one, we realized like, oh, you don't have to go to a dark place to get a good workout. Like we just both beat Rogan on our first workouts, and we were watching fucking cartoons the entire time. So like that was our tongue in cheek, jab at Rogan was calling it the dark place challenge.
yeah. I mean, I don't think really any of the workouts I did were that impressive individually, right? Like even the last day. I mean, someone who's a reasonably decent shape runner could do um, could have done that half marathon way faster than I did. Riding an Aerodyne, it's time. That was definitely hard, but like yeah, anyone could do that.
Put it
But
like this: if Cam Haines was in our competition, he'd be laughing at our workouts.
oh,
That should be
exactly.
someone people recognize.
But the fact that just to keep doing those workouts that were hard for 31 days straight, to every, there were so many days for me where, and I in our chats, I was trying to play it off where I'm like, yeah, I feel great, I think I'm just gonna ramp up to like 700 next week. I'm like, I feel like death right now. There is no energy in my body right now. I don't understand how I'm gonna get 400 points today. Like, it's not possible. I'm just gonna have to find a way.
Yeah,
um
there was days I would get on there and I could not get my heart rate above 65%. Like I had two heaters on. I even wouldn't put extra clothes on, like because like you were explaining to me, like the colder it is, the harder it is for your blood to flow. So like there was days I was out there legitimately wearing two pairs of shorts, the tallest socks I own, multiple tallest socks, short socks, medium socks, like three pairs of socks, you know, a cut off, a t-shirt, a long sleeve, and then a hoodie. And there were days I was putting, I have a fucking like thing you throw in the microwave that heat up and you put it around your neck. I was putting that on underneath my hoodie, pulling my hood up, tying it some days, trying to get it to go. Like all those people who talk shit, like I dare you to even have that thought cross your mind because you want to win the competition so bad.
Well, and that's the thing people forget. It's like so the way the muscle tissue in your heart is made isn't the same as the rest, like your arms or your legs or anything. It's much better at drawing power, but your heart is still a muscle. It can fatigue. It's not going to fatigue usually to the point where it's, like your legs where it just stops working, but it's not going to be as efficient at beating when you've been really taxing your cardio. So like if you just never take a break, like your heart doesn't recover. And I noticed that. I mean, there were for me, the days where I took a break were when I only did like 1 2 hour workout in the morning, and I would even notice the next day after I did that I could suddenly get up into higher ranges because my heart had gotten a little bit of a rest.
Yeah, because I had like 3 days where I could not get it above 60. And like, because what my schedule for it, because I don't know what your job or anything is, but like what my schedule was usually I have to go into work around 11 to 12. I work as a delivery driver for a fucking bakery, so I have a kind of loose schedule depending on how many deliveries we have. But usually I would have to go in like 11 to 12 would be my going time, and so I would just naturally wake up around 7 just because of my dogs. So I'd wake up at 7, I'd eat breakfast, go to the bathroom, get dressed, sit there dreading starting it till about 8:30, and then I would just be on there from 8:30 to 11 just trying to go as hard as I possibly could for that entire time. And then just like, okay, my break is I get to go to work. And then as soon as I get home from work, eat dinner, get dressed, have your 30 minutes of dread. And then I would get on from like 7 to 10 most nights, sometimes 7 to 9:30. And my goal every day is cardio every day. And it wasn't fun, but it was a learning experience.
So that's the part where I do feel bad. I mean, I was saying tongue in cheek talking about cheating because with those hot baths, like they were torturous and it was me manipulating my body and making my heartbeat fast. The part that I do really feel bad about is like I actually had fun during a lot of it. There were so many parts where I'm like, dude, this is just awesome. Like I would have never done it if it wasn't for this stupid competition. But like even like that last day, I mean, it was scary as anything, but I'm doing this half marathon through the mountain trails. It snowed, and I get deeper in than anyone's been going because like um, the first part of the trail is kind of close to a tourist attraction, so there people are hiking. The snow is tramped down, but then I get farther on the trail, and it's just pure virgin snow. No one has stepped on it since the snowfall 2 days ago, and I'm just like plodding through this, trying to run. And I get to a point where I suddenly see these tracks, and it's like this huge ass. And there's a mountain lion track that was about half the length of my foot, and I wear a size 12, and I'm like, holy shit! Like, this is a big cat. Like, I should probably turn around now. I'm like, well, but if I turn around now, I'm only gonna get 10 miles instead of a half marathon. Fuck it. I'm going to keep going. Let's roll the dice. And I like my heart rate did actually like accelerate a little bit from that. Like those hikes were fun. Like I even had fun during some of the agility plyos. Like I would just go walk around like my neighborhood. Like there's a pho restaurant that is 6/10 of a mile from where I live. And I would just like walk, listening to music, doing these agility plyos, like randomly doing like terrible, terrible high intensity dancing when a song that came on that I liked. Like it was fun for me for a lot of it.
Oh,
And
I enjoyed the suffering part. Like, it was good knowing there was at least one other person who was suffering, and then other Aaron from Love and May. Like, I knew he was suffering a little bit, but he's got a full-time job. He's got a night full-time job. He and kids and family. He can't keep up. Like, I think what you're single, you're remodeling your house right now, and I'm just fucking off delivering cookies and 24, no real obligations. So like it was fun knowing that there's absolutely zero reason we should be doing this, but the fact that we're doing this and it's so miserable, other people are done with it.
now, now see, yeah, I proposed it because it was just the perfect time for me to do it. I had taken like my income for the last couple of years has just come through writing. So I'd taken on a really big writing project for the beginning of the year where I was like, that's probably going to be the bulk of my income from the year. And then I just finished doing the remodels of the house, so I didn't have to worry about that. And I just had shorter, like almost like blog length writing work to do, where it's like 500 to 1,000 word pieces that I could usually do in a couple hours. So it's like, yeah, I could work out, clear my head, crank out 1,000 words, and then be right back to grinding at night. So like it was just like such a good time for me to do it, which in the spirit of the whole sober October thing, that was the reason they did it too, is because they just had nothing going on that month.
The sober aspect was on me. I think about it. I'm really sober. Like, I feel like Joe Rogan shouldn't be able to do all his PEDs while he's doing it. Like, that's technically drugs. And let's be real, that's the reason Joe won. Because what was he? 1,000 points over Ari and 2,000 points over or Tom and Bert. Like, I
Yeah.
think I think in the real spirit of competition and the real spirit of sober October, he shouldn't be allowed to be on his TRT as HGH.
Are you
Good
kidding
shit.
me? Joe Rogan would turn into dust and blow away in the wind if he stopped taking all that stuff. I mean, because just the TRT alone, right? Like he's been taking it long enough at this point where his body has probably stopped producing any testosterone on its own. So if he stopped taking it for sober October, his testosterone levels would just absolutely crash because his body just isn't making it. So he wouldn't forget about recovering. Like getting out of bed in the morning and just like walking around through the day would be absolutely brutal. I mean, so yeah, absent of that, he would not have. We would be at like 500 points, dark place challenge.
I was thinking about that so many days when I was like it was like 10 o'clock at night and I'm still on the elliptical. I'm like, I wonder what his fucking score would be if he wasn't on PEDs. Because I was seeing Bert and Tom's. I'm like, we know those two aren't on fucking PEDs, and they're keeping up pretty decently. I feel like our competition would have been a lot less fun if Joe Rogan wasn't on
Oh,
PEDs.
well, I can tell you, like, it does make a big difference. I mean, I don't want to get into all my health stuff, but like, you and I have talked a lot. Like, I definitely have some health problems. Um, stuff going on with my head and neck and this like weird inflammation and whatnot. So at some point, I did go into like a hormone clinic to get all that stuff tested, and what I learned is like, oh, if you go into a quote unquote hormone doctor, they're just going to try to put you on TRT if you're a man because that's how they make money. So I tried it for a couple months because I wanted to see if it did actually make a difference with the problems I was having. And he said he's like, okay, so 2 months you should be able to see if it helps correct this, and it didn't. So I just went off of it because I didn't want to get on that that point where I am sure Rogan is, where my body just completely stops making it on its own. But man, I felt. I mean, for those 2 months, man, I maybe not even 2 months that 1 month at the end felt way stronger. I had way more energy. Like now, if I don't get a good night's sleep, I feel completely wrecked and just useless and tired. I when I was on TRT for that month, if I got only 4 to 6 hours of sleep, I could wake up still feel like I had energy. I put on muscle mass just when I was still rolling jujitsu at that point, and I just got way bigger and stronger. I'm like, huh. So this actually is a legit performance enhancing drug. Like this does make a huge difference. So it's not just some thing that USADA randomly harps on. It definitely helps you.
I can't wait to get health insurance and be able to get all that, because like one of the number one side effects of all the head trauma, especially someone like me's had, it's like it always fucks up your hormone levels. I can't wait to get that tested one day and figure out how fucked up it really is. Like I dream about that at night sometimes.
Yeah, I I've thought about going back on it just to have more energy and everything, but I don't like the fact that your body stops making testosterone on your own. Like that just doesn't seem right. Our I think our country as a whole has a problem with being on way more drugs than we need to be. And if I don't actually need it, then I don't see why I would go on it.
Yeah, I mean, I talk a big game, but I mean, I don't even take fucking Advil, so I doubt even if they did tell me my levels were fucked up, I doubt I would be shilling out any money to actually get it. But I'd at least have that little excuse in the back of my head. Well, at least I know my testosterone's fucked up. I mean, I already am a giant of a human being. I kind of have a little bit of genetics going my way. I probably shouldn't push the boundaries.
So, how deep are time wise are we into this? Have we hit Rogan territory?
Dude, we're at 3 hours and 4 minutes.
Holy shit! That's incredible.
It was bright as shit outside when this started, and it is dark as night right now.
Dude, this has been a lot of fun for me.
Oh, it's been thoroughly entertaining.
We we went from fight talk deep into the MCU,
almost 2 hours of MCU,
back into questions, back into territory, and then we're covering we were covering the dark
ethics of TRT,
the Dark Place
Challenge.
TRT, and it seems fitting where it's like we finished talking about how we wanted to beat Rogan, and then we for the first time, I guess for both of us, just hit a Rogan length podcast. It's almost seems like
I started noticing it at 2 hours, and I'm like, oh, this, because I remember you saying that somewhere close to the beginning. I'm like, oh, I don't think he has a timer. I definitely do. I was getting a little internal chuckle this whole time, just seeing it creep up. Like I just sent a text of the timer to this girl I was talking to, just waiting for me to finish so we can watch a movie. She's somewhere else. I'm gonna watch it here. And I just sent a picture of that. I go, well, we learned today that we can do Rogan Link podcast with the relative ease.
Well, let's definitely do this again, and then we can we made Rogan length content, and let's see if we can slowly start to build to Rogan quality content.
Oh, let's be real. If Rogan talked about MCU, he'd have double the subscribers he already has. He's missing out. We're out here covering his untapped potential. He doesn't even know this market's available. This is how we're gonna get bigger than Rogan. I'm at a measly 580 something subscribers right now, dude. Let me tell you what, those subscriptions, like all my analytics and shit, dropped. I had a fantastic first episode, and then they just dropped after that. I think people got really sick of listening to me just talk to myself for it. So it's gonna be fascinating to see what this. Because I was hoping to put this out like this afternoon, but it's fucking 9 o'clock where I am now.
Yeah.
If I put it out now, no one's gonna listen to it. It'll still get put out tomorrow. But I can't wait. Because I'm going to post a little screenshot of it live on YouTube. And it's going to say 3-something fucking hours. I can't wait just to read those comments.
Jesus. So yeah, maybe in the future we can tighten it up a little bit, be a little bit more focused. But this was a hell of a way to kick off our first co-cast.
Oh, it's definitely good. I mean, we can do this anytime. So I'm glad you came on to do it. It finally, created people wanting me to get a guest on, but they might be pissed now that they see how long it is and how just pure chaos the flow of this was.
Yeah, that's also we can work all that out. But dude, I'm gonna go get something to eat. It's 7 o'clock here now. And,
I blew by dinner by about 3 hours. I thought, oh, we'll do this for about an hour, and I'll get some pot roast and vegetables or some shit. It's 9 o'clock. I got to take a piss. I got to go eat. I got to let the dogs out.
All right.
Oh goodness. So everybody, I guess we have to do an official outro. This has been the Just Stand Up podcast. I'm AJ. That was Aaron. You can find him at Blastyd, Blastyd on Instagram. He's formerly Blastyd MMA. He's way smarter than I am when it comes to MMA. So if you want to actually learn shit, he maybe doesn't post as much as he should, but he's still a quality follow.
Yeah, because as I covered earlier, it takes me like 2 hours plus to make those videos.
Oh, we didn't even cover the new direction you're going to take your page in. I guess we're going to have to cover that
next time.
We dropped the ball on that one. That was bad hosting from me. I should have written that down.
That's fine. No stress. We're just figuring stuff out on the fly.
I swear, if anyone's listening at this point, God bless your soul. You're a real one.
Peace out. I'm hanging up.